feelings. It's like I can't walk on the ceiling. Oh yeah, got me dreaming, dreaming in colors I never dreamed. Oh yeah, I let you in deeper than I let anyone else before. Fell in love with my broken pieces, took them all and made them yours. Didn't know what my heartbeat needed, skipping out, no I can't keep score. When I lose my breath, boy, you got me breathing. Oh, every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Oh, magic. No, I'm never letting go. Now that I have it with you. When you kiss me, it's like the stars fall out the sky onto my heart to cover up what I don't wanna show. I let you in deeper than I let anyone else before. Fell in love with my broken pieces, took them all and made them yours. Didn't know what my heartbeat needed, skipping out, no I can't keep score. When I lose my breath, boy, you got me breathing. Oh, every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Every little thing you do, every time you hold me, take me higher, higher. Oh, you take me higher, you take me higher, baby, you take me higher, you take me higher, baby, you take me higher, you take me higher, baby, you take me higher, yeah, you take me higher, baby.
I'm always trying to see through your flaws, 'cause I know that you got so much more to give. You made a real mess, but I miss you though, 'cause I can go to sleep when I'm alone again. Say you wanna fix our problems, how long should I be waiting? Feels like I've had too much of drama, but I'm not ready to give in. I don't wanna see us going on and off again. Baby, all I really want is only on from now. Every time I see a glimpse of your good side, I start wondering how I could make it last a little longer. Say you wanna fix our problems, how long should I be waiting? Feels like I've had too much of drama, but I'm not ready to give in. See us going on and off again. Baby, all I really want is
everyone. Hope your Thursday isn't going too bad. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. Yeah, we're going to be doing some Blender today, and because I got a 3D printer a while back, and I've been wanting to learn it, because apparently Blender's pretty useful for 3D printing, and well, I've just been wanting an excuse to use Blender for a while to learn, and this gives me a reason not to be lazy. And I figure, you know what, let's stream it, because that way I don't have to be lazy. So I can stream and be productive and learn. So, and I can also share myself being a noob. Now, I'm going to be using, apparently, Blender Guru on YouTube has a very popular thingy here. Let me go to window capture. Yeah, so I'm going to be using this tutorial, so I can give credit where credit is due. Go ahead and copy and paste that in the chat. So I can give credit where credit is due, because I don't want to be this dickhole who just kind of steals information and doesn't give credit, because, you know, this guy took the time to do that. So let's go ahead and show that. So that's what we're learning from. I'll probably do a small window capture later as I'm pulling it up, so I can have it on window at the same time. Oh yeah, I could probably do that. I'll sort that out in a second. So let's put this chat here. This chat goes there, that goes there. This will go here. That will go here. Okay, let me get Blender up. There we go. Window capture, we got Blender up. Okay, so let's turn down the volume a little bit here so I can. Oh, didn't mean to turn off the volume, just turn it down slightly so that I can capture or hear what he's going to say, because yes, I'm complete noob. Let's see if I can do picture-in-picture here. Let's see. Get a new window capture up. So I can have two windows open at once. Let's try this window 2. 2. There we go. So we're going to have this over here so people can see exactly what I'm doing. I'll put that over here so people can see what I'm doing. So this thing's out of the way. So yeah, here we go. So let's get started, see what we, and well, we'll learn the things.
This is Blender, open source 3D software that can be used to make animations, visual effects, game assets, or practically anything 3D. And best of all, it's 100% free, and it always will be. If you've never used it before but you want to learn it, well, then you're in the right place. This is a tutorial for complete beginners. I've been using Blender for 20 years, so I'm going to show you how to use all of its core features. And by the end, you'll finish with not only the confidence to start your own projects, but with your very own donut animation. And I know this looks complex, but I promise you it's achievable for a complete beginner. And I say that with confidence because many already have. This is actually the fourth version of this tutorial. I made the first donut tutorial back in 2016, and I've been remaking it every few years to keep up with Blender's development. In that time, millions of people, just like yourself, have gone from having never used 3D to successfully making their own donuts. One artist even snuck his into a little film called Everything Everywhere All at Once. Very clever. So, if you're ready to take your first steps in 3D, hit the subscribe button and let's begin. First, go to blender.org/download or just click the link in the description. Then, obviously, you got to hit the big download button. Once downloaded on Windows, double click it and then just go through the install steps. But starters, this will teach you in this tutorial series. The thing you need to know is Blender can do applications folder. The thing you need to know is Blender can do a lot of things, which means it has a lot of tools, but you don't need to know every tool in order to do what you want to do. If you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, there's really only 20% of Blender's features that you end up using 80% of the time. And that's what I'm planning to teach you in this tutorial series. So stay with me and you should be fine. We'll start making the donut in the next video. In this one, we're just going to look at the interface, and I'm going to show you some of the basic navigation.
Oh,
So for starters, this view, this window right here, is your 3D viewport, and it's where you'll spend probably 90% of your time, because it is the 3D world. So you can see that we have three objects here. We've got a camera, we've got a cube, and we've got a lamp. And when we click on it, you can see it's selected because it has the yellow outline. So let's delete the default cube, of course, and replace it with something else. So we could do that by going up to the Add menu up here, or by remembering the hotkey, which...
Add, where the hell are you? Oh, Add, there we go. Add
is Shift A. So Shift A for Add. So usually the one you're looking for is underneath Mesh. So these are called your primitives, and it's what you use to start something when you're looking to make an object. Like if you're going to make a chair, you might start with a cylinder as the chair leg and then build out from there. But the one I'm sure you're all very curious, you want to click it, it's the monkey. So let's just click the monkey. Why does Blender have a monkey? Well, fun fact, every 3D software has its own little random complex object because it's useful to test things like shaders or complexities of scenes. So 3ds Max has the Utah Teapot, Houdini has the toy, and I think Pig's Head. Blender has the monkey, and it's actually called the Suzanne monkey head, which you can see in the top left there, named after the orangutan from the film Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Random piece of trivia. So let's get a better look at it. And to that we need to orbit, which you can do by, on your mouse there, your scroll wheel, that is called your middle mouse button. If you push that in and then drag around, that is now orbiting. Now, for my laptop users, you've just panicked because you realize you don't have a mouse. How are you going to orbit around? First of all, probably a good idea to get a mouse for 3D work. It will come in handy. But in a pinch, you can get by without it just by up here in the top right-hand corner, this little gray circle, anywhere in the gray section. If you just left-click, drag on that, that will do the exact same thing. Or if you want, you can go to
now I know everything I need, right?
And then underneath Input, there's Emulate 3-button mouse. And that means that if you hold down Alt and then left-click drag, that will do the exact same thing. Also, whilst you are in User Preferences, you might want to go to Interface, and you've got Resolution Scale.
Okay, let's see here. Interface. Yeah, it's over here. Preferences. Where else Preferences? I should have paid attention to that. So I'm going to go back a little bit.
If you want, you can go to Edit
Edit Preferences. Okay.
Preferences, and then underneath Input, there's Emulate 3-button mouse, and that means that if you hold down Alt and then left-click drag, that will do the exact same thing. Also, whilst you are in User Preferences, you might want to go to Interface, and you've got Resolution Scale. If you're on a 4K monitor, you might find that your menus and buttons are really small and you kind of have to like squint in to see it. So personally, I like to keep my 4K monitor around about 1.5. Since this is a tutorial, I'll make it nice and big so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so that's orbiting around with the middle mouse button. If we want to zoom in, we can do that just by scrolling in and out. We could also do it by going up to the magnifying glass tool there, and then just left-click dragging and then moving the mouse back and forth. That does the same thing. Or you could hold down Control and then middle mouse button, and that will do a smooth zoom as well. Okay, so one thing you might notice looking at this is that it's not very pretty, right? It's just kind of got this flat, bland, gray lighting over everything. And that's because this state right now is called viewport shading. And it's kind of a lightweight, optimized way to view the scene, just as you're building it. If you want to create a final pretty image, that's called rendering. And you can actually switch into rendered mode by going up here into the top right-hand corner. You can see we're currently in the viewport shading mode. If we go 2 across, you should see rendered view mode.
Okay, let's see, where is that? Right, where is that? Okay, up there at the top. Viewport shading.
So if we click that, your computer might stall for a quick second whilst it loads it in, but you can see it's now different.
Okay.
We have have directional light. We have shadow cast across the monkey. So it's now currently being lit by this lamp up here. So if I wanted to, zoom in on that lamp there and just kind of like move it around, you can see it's kind of hard to focus on. Like it's always exactly not in the right view. And that's because we are centered on our monkey right now. We need to change the focus. We need to pan to something else. So we could do that one of two ways. One, if you're on a laptop, you could use the little move tool there. That will do that. Or everyone else, shift, middle mouse click, drag, that will do the same thing. So middle mouse is for orbiting, shift middle mouse is for pan to change your view to something else.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I want to move my light because it's too moody. I want to be able to see the monkey's face there. So to move an object, you could do it one of two ways. One, you could go over to the left-hand corner here and you've got the move tool. When you click that, you can see that the selected object,
Left-hand corner, you have move tool. Just okay, that right there.
lamp has this this gizmo, it's called, with these axes on it. And if I just clicked and dragged on any of those arrows there, you can see I can move it along any of those axes. I can also just click on that white circle there, and that will just freehand drag it depending on my view. But it's kind of tedious. Every time you want to move something, you have to like go to that tool and then find the arrows and yada yada. So actually most people in Blender prefer to use the hotkeys. So we just keep it in the default selection state here, and instead remember the hotkey, which is G for grab. Now I've just tapped the key and you'll notice as I move my cursor that it's now attached to my cursor. My cursor isn't even actually close to it. In fact, my cursor could be on the other side of the screen and I could tap G.
Oh, cool, okay.
At first this is kind of awkward. You're like, why is it working this way? But once you get used to it, you realize it's actually handy because you don't have to spend all this time like navigating your cursor to something just so that you can move it. Your cursor could be over here and then just tap it and you're moving it. So whilst you're in this move state, if you want to cancel a movement, you could do it one of two ways. You could just hit escape, or you could right click. Then if you want to confirm a movement, like say I want to move my lamp here and I like the movement, I could just do a single left click. So again, if I want to cancel something, just right click. If I want to confirm the movement, left click. But let's say I wanted to move it along an axis, like, I like these arrows here and I want to be able to move it on just a specific axis. Well, I can do that whilst I'm in that grab state as well. So after I've hit the G key to grab it, I can then tap the letter of the axis that I want to move it on. So if you don't know, in the real world and in the 3D software, there are 3 axes because there's 3 dimensions. There's the X axis, which I can move by hitting the X key.
That is
the
cool.
Y axis to move it back and forth along the Y axis with the Y key.
Today
or
I
the Z
learned.
axis to move it up and down on the Z axis. So you can remember those letters, the X, Y, and Z. Or the method that I actually prefer to use is whilst you're in that G state, if you just hold down the middle mouse button and then pull out, you can see you get this like gray line that pulls out from the center. And then if you just drag out and move around, it will snap it to the nearest axis, which again is maybe an odd way to work, but it's actually really handy because it means you don't have to think of the letter and locate it on your keyboard. I can just tap G to move it and then middle mouse drag out and then just find that exact axis that I'm looking for. And so it's very fast. You just quickly move the lamp exactly
G, X, Y, and Z.
If you're finding it hard to remember all of the keyboard shortcuts that I've mentioned, I've actually put together a PDF, a cheat sheet of Blender's most common hotkeys, and you can download that by clicking the link in the description, so you could print it out.
I'm actually going to nab that super quick. Oopsies. Okie doke. Cool. There we go, we got it.
Separate monitor while you work. Also, if you are from another 3D software package, you might notice that Blender's hotkeys are different than what you are used to. So if you actually go to Preferences, just for those people that are from other softwares, if you change the key map to industry compatible, you'll find that these shortcuts are probably more in line with what you remember from other software.
Okay.
I'll also put a link to a cheat sheet that is just for the industry compatible key maps that somebody else put together. I've got nothing to do with it, but I'll put that link there so you can check it out as well. For the rest of this tutorial series, I'm going to use Blender's hotkeys. Just keep that in mind. Now let's say, as I am moving around here, I'm like, oh, this looks really good. I've got some nice Rembrandt lighting across the monkey's face. I want to take a photo. I want to take a nice pretty image of this and post it on socials for clout, right? Well, I could take a screenshot of it, but that would be silly because it's got all these lines all over. It's all noisy, right? We don't like it. The way you take a photo, a pretty image in Blender, is to do a render. So you could do that one of two ways, by going up to render and hitting render image, or remembering the hotkey which says next to it F12.
Okay.
So when you do that, a little window will pop up. It will use your CPU or GPU, depending on which render you've got active, and it will render out a pretty image. And from here, you could go image and then save as, and that will save it as a PNG or whatever
Okay.
you want to save it. But you might notice looking at this that this is actually a different view than what we have here, right?
Yeah.
So here I've got a nice view of the monkey's face, but there is a different view. And the reason for that is when you do a render, it's not rendering from the view that you're looking at currently. It's always going to render from the point of view of the camera. So this is our camera over here, and it's looking from this angle. And we can actually look through the camera by just clicking the little camera icon there, or by remembering the hotkey, which is number pad 0. So how do we move the camera? Well, Blender's a little awkward, maybe a little different to other software packages, but you're supposed to like hit G to move it, and then like middle mouse to zoom in and out, and then if you want to like move it along an axis, I guess G and then X. You could do that, but actually what a lot of users prefer, especially those from other software packages, is if you've got your camera selected, which by the way, I haven't mentioned this, but up here, this is your outliner. It's kind of an inventory of every item that you've got in your scene. Okay, so with the camera there selected, if I hit N, N is to bring up the properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view.
Okay, so N like... Oh, there it is. Okay.
There's a little box there that just says lock to camera to view. So now...
Where is that? Is that camera here? Where is this locked camera to view? As in
the item that you've got in your scene. Okay, so with the camera there selected, if I hit N, N is to bring...
Got camera selected, hit N. Okay.
Bring up the properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view. There's a little box there that just says lock to camera to view.
Where the hell is view? Or icon? Oh, view. Show active? So what am I viewing exactly? Okay, I'm confused. View what? Did I miss something here? Oh, view. Ah, there it is.
So now, with that active, if I just properties, N for properties for whatever reason, and then go to view, there's a little box there that just says lock to camera to view. So now, with that active, if I just use the same keyboard shortcuts as before, middle mouse button to orbit around, shift middle mouse to drag it, you can see that the camera is moving with it. So essentially the view, I can set it up exactly as I want, then hit N again, and then I can disable that. And then now as I pull out, you can see that the camera will stay exactly where it was, and I could do a lovely, pretty render. But this is too simple. If we post this on the internet, people are bound to make fun of us. Imagine that. Well, we could give it some color, right? So, with our monkey head selected, we can go over to here to the properties. So this...
Okay, Suzanne, go to properties.
Properties section is where you might spend the other, I don't know, another 8 5 to 8%. I don't know, getting too exact there. Might spend another 5% of your time in this section, but
Okay.
it's where all of the properties for things are in Blender. So for example, you've got like the render properties, like the size of the image that you're saving something as is defined there. And some of these properties will stay here no matter what is selected, but others are selection dependent.
Ooh, rendering
So you
image.
can see actually if I click the camera there, you can see I get a little camera tab at the bottom there. But if I select my monkey, you'll see the camera tab disappears, but instead I have some other ones that appear. So one that we might want to change is underneath material, and this will enable us to add a material, change the color to something else, essentially. So underneath here where it's got new, I'm just going to hit new. And then you've got a bunch of options, very confusing. Ooh, IOR, subsurface. Again, don't worry about it. We'll get to all of that later on. The one that defines the color is the base color. So if I do a single left click on that white box there, I can then change this color to whatever I want. I could
Purple monkey.
make it an
There we
odd,
go.
creepy, skin-toned monkey head, right?
I'm going with
Like
purple.
that. And do a render. Okay, so hey, all right, it's better, but still it's too simple. I think people will think we haven't put enough effort into this masterpiece. So let's add another object. Let's give the monkey a hat. So if we want to add another object, how do we do it? Well, we could go to the add menu, like I mentioned before, or the hotkey Shift A. So what sort of hat do we want to add? We could do
Shift
a boxy hat. Let's do a party hat with a cone. So once we've added that object, you can see it's just plopped it straight in the center, intersecting our monkey. So we need to move it. We can move it, and we could grab it with the G key. So it's now moving it just on our cursor there. I don't want to move it just freehand though, because I like the position, but I just want to move it up. So I'm going to hit Z to move it along the Z axis. Right, I like it there. So once I like the placement, I'm just going to do a single left click. Okay, great.
Okay.
But too big. See, need to learn another tool, which is scale. So we could go to the scale tool there, and then we get this familiar little axes there. But again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which for scale is just S. So S to scale. So resizing that. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's move it down again. So G and Z. Okay. All right, but yeah, let's say we want to make it a little taller. Okay, so we could scale it along just the Z axis. So S and then Z. Whoops. S, Z.
Oh,
there we
okay.
go. And it's now making it a tall party hat. Scale it down.
And then
There we go. Ha! Look at that. A very bland party if it's grey though. So let's give it another material. An exciting color. A vibrant aqua color. Why not? Give that a
Jeez.
render by hitting F12. Okay. Camera is in the wrong position.
let's go ahead and get the material again. See how I do that. Go down here. Was it material? Material. I'm remembering things. Let's give it a purple hat. Okay. Well, no, let's make it blue because I can. There we go. Okay, dokes.
So let's go to camera view mode with number pad 0. This is Blender. Open source
Oh
3D
no,
software that can be,
drew
I
stuff.
actually prefer to use, is whilst you're in that G state, if you just hold down and then I can disable that, and then now as I pull out, actually, so Z to move it along the Z
There we go.
axis.
Haha.
Right, I like it there, so once I like the placement, I'm just going to do a single left click. Okay, great. But too big. See, need to learn another tool, which is scale. So we could go to the scale
There
tool
we
there,
go.
and then we get this
Haha!
familiar
I made a
little axis
monkey
there.
with a
But
hat.
Again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which for scale is just S. So S to scale.
Okay,
So
let's-
resizing that. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's move it down again. So G and Z. Okay. All right, but yeah, let's say we want to make it a little taller. Okay, so we could scale it along just the Z axis. So S
Come on.
and then Z. Whoops. S, Z. There we go. And it's now making
Oh,
it
my
a
mouse
tall
button's
party hat.
being weird.
Scale it down. There we go. Ha! Look at that.
There we go.
A very bland party if it's grey though. So let's give it another material. an exciting color, a vibrant aqua color. Why not give that a render by hitting F12? Okay.
Yep.
Camera is in the wrong position, so let's go to camera view mode with number pad 0. I'm going to select my camera, and rather than dabbling with that little thing I had before, I'm going to hit G and then middle mouse, just tap it once. As I said, it's a little awkward, Blender's the way it handles with the camera, but anyway, just move that out, and then I gotta rotate it. All right, so I'm gonna rotate. So with the camera selected, tap R, then middle mouse, and it's now kind of like freehand rotating around. So I'll just move it up slightly. There we go. Okay, this is just a fool around session, so don't worry if you're making mistakes. We'll get to actual practical building stuff in the next part. I'm just trying to find ways to throw in these like fundamental tools.
Okay, so
rotate, right? The monkey's head is just, he needs to look dead on at the camera, and currently he's off. What an excuse to use the rotate tool. So you could enable the rotate tool, right? The familiar axes there. You could click and rotate it around like that. Again, most people prefer to remember the hotkey, which is R to rotate, right? So it's now just freehand rotating on my cursor. Remember the axes, as I mentioned before, can be used for any mode. So the X axis will rotate it back and forth. The Y axis, tilt it, or Z, there we go, to turn it towards the camera. Just a little bit, right? And there you go, F12. And we've done it. Let's save it. Let's upload it to ArtStation. And then just wait for the recruiters, essentially. All right, let's start a new scene so that we can get ready for part 2, where we're going to actually start building our donut and learning some of the more core features of Blender. So click here, and I will see you in part 2.
Yay.
Now we know how Blender functions.
I'll save that.
Let's start building.
Well, let's go ahead and call this just monkey.
As before,
monkey tutorial, because I can have some documentation of, hey, I made a noob thing. So let's call this. Actually, I don't want to. I'm gonna move that folder because I don't want to keep extra. Bullshit. There we go. Yes, delete that. New folder. We're going to move that. I'm just going to save stuff in my storage file. Looks like I have at one point my profile broke. Default user 1000. I'll have to look at that and see what's going on with that later, because that ain't right. Let's actually create today at 2:55. What the hell, Windows? Okay, so save as, going to backup. Let's see here. We're going to keep that here. New folder. Blender tutorial out. Blender stuff. There we go. We'll open that up, and we'll just save this in tutorial stuff. Tutorial stuff. Save as monkey toot. So I can come back to that later if I kind of want to just keep that for whatever. So we'll go to new general. Okay.
Let's well, first of all, just to repeat, make sure you are working with a new scene. Completely new scene. Don't want any remaining monkey heads lying around. Let's begin fresh slate, and let's delete our default cube just with the delete key.
Yep,
and let's replace it with a new object. You might remember the hotkey for that is Shift A. As I mentioned before, you usually want what is underneath mesh because these are your primitives. So we want to start with something that most resembles what it is we're building. If it was a house, you might start with a cube. If it was a vase, you might start with a cylinder. In our case, we want the donut-shaped one, although mathematicians call it a torus for some reason. So let's add that. Now if I zoom in by scrolling up, we can see we have something resembling a donut. Looks like a pretty weak-looking donut, you know, very flimsy. Looks like the donut before it's cooked, when they just drop it into the vat, and it's just this little wispy thing. So immediately after you do some actions in Blender, you have options to change it. And the options are hidden down here in the bottom left-hand corner. You see a little box. If you click that box, you see options. And look,
Okay, what? I don't have that. Let's go ahead and do that again then. Shift A. Shift A. Mesh torus. Oh, there it is. Add torus.
we can change the dimensions of our torus.
Okay.
Now, something to note is that these options in Blender only appear immediately after you have done that action. If you do another action, like say deselect your torus by mistake, it's gone, right? Because Blender has assumed you have moved on, you've accepted the state of your donut, and this is the one you want, right?
Okay.
Now, if you haven't done anything drastic or changed this object in some severe way, you can temporarily bring it back by hitting F9. I never actually remember that hotkey. I just remember that immediately after I have added an object, if I want to tweak it, now's my chance before I move on to something else.
Okay.
So we could change, the size of it here. We can also change the resolution. I'll use the term resolution loosely.
High resolution.
To make it
256
higher or lower fidelity.
polygon.
And a mistake that a lot of beginners make, and I say this because this was the exact mistake I made way back in 2003 when I
make
started
it as
learning
high
Blender,
as possible.
is they go, well, I need a realistic looking donut, so I guess I need to go really high resolution. I remember my first project, one of my first projects was for a high school film project, and I wanted to have a close-up of a face. Didn't realize faces were going to be difficult, but I went really high poly, and then it was just an absolute nightmare to work with. So the reason you don't want this is that, for starters, things that are high poly are very slow to render, and they're very hard to work with if you want to tweak the shape of it. But also, as you learn and you grow with 3D, you'll discover that it is a lot easier to add resolution to something later on, but it is very difficult to take it away if you've already built it into it and you don't need it. So, long way to say, what we actually want is to have as few polys, these are called polys, as you
32
can get
by
away with.
12.
So I'm going to go with 32 major and 12 minor. And don't worry that it looks all jagged, because we will fix that in a moment. Now, the major and minor, this is really up to you, but I find that something that looks it's kind of chunky, like a fat donut, just looks really delicious. So I'm going with something around about this size, okay? And once I'm happy with this, once I'm ready to click off, I click off, the options are gone, and this is it. This is the donut that I am now working with.
Is there a way to
So how do we make this look
no.
higher resolution?
Oh
less
gosh.
jagged? Well, one way is to
I
use
just
smooth shading. So if you right-click with your object selected, go to Shade Smooth.
Oh jeez.
And look at that. This is
Oh god, turn it
immediately
upside
better.
down.
Without getting too technical, this is kind of a
What did I just
fakery.
do to
It's
my
sort of like
resolution?
the shader is
Oh god, I just broke it already. Shit. Maybe? Is that upside down? Nope. Ah jeez, I already broke it. Maybe? I'm uncomfortable with this view. Okay, so let's see here. You can go over here to custom properties. Or F9. There we go. Okay, let's make it a little chunkier. There we go.
to use smooth shading. So if you right click with your object selected, go to Shade Smooth. And look at that, this is immediately better. Without getting too technical, this is kind of a fakery. It's sort of like the shader is telling the renderer that this is a really high poly dense mesh when it really isn't. It's just basically kind of like averaging out faces, and anyway, it's very technical, but basically means it's not going to add anything to your render time, but it's going to look smoother. And so this is generally what you want for something that is smooth and organic looking, like we want. If you were rendering like architectural or like hard surfaces, like later on we're going to put this on a counter, then the object would obviously want to be flat. But in our case, we're just going to use Shade Smooth. But you might notice that looking at this, especially if you go side on, that you've got this sort of jagged shape around here, right? So the silhouette is really breaking that illusion that this is a high poly or a smooth looking donut. But thankfully, rather than adding all of that complex density into the mesh itself and then making it hard to remove later on, there's another way through modifiers. So if we go over here to our properties, right, this very confusing, lots of option looking properties, click on the wrench, and this is the section called modifiers. And this is one of those object dependent things. So if you've got your camera selected, you won't see it. So it's only when you've got actual meshes that you might see this modifier here. So it's much easier to explain if we just add one. So up here, add modifier, and you've got a range of options here that can do a whole number of things. The one that we're looking for is underneath generate, and it is called subdivision surface. And it is a really common modifier that you use all the time. In fact, it's so common, it's actually, you can just immediately add it to any object just by hitting Control 1. But don't do that because we've already got it, so there. Now, some of you might have just discovered that your donut has disappeared. If that is the case, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and then underneath Viewport, where it's got Subdivision at the very bottom, Disable GPU Subdivision. That will then make the subdivision perform on your CPU instead of your GPU, which is maybe non-existent or not performing whatever. But disable that and it should appear. But if it's already working for you, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. So what exactly is this doing? Well, it's a lot easier to explain if we look at the shade flat mode, because we're not being tricked by the smooth shading there. If I set this levels viewport to 0, this is our original mesh. This is before we...
What? How did I do that again? So it's that. Okay. Sorry for being such a noob, but...
Well, that and it should appear. But if it's already working for you, don't disable it. Keep it going because GPU will be faster. So what exactly is this doing? Well, it's a lot easier to explain if we look at the shade flat mode.
Shade flat.
Because we're not being tricked by the smooth shading there. If I set this levels viewport to 0, this is our original mesh. This is before we add the subsurface essentially. When we increase this, you can see that it is adding resolution to our mesh. And the more I increase this viewport levels here, the finer and finer that detail becomes. So to explain it, because this is such a very, very common modifier, it's kind of important to understand how it's working. You can see that this is... these squares here, these are called faces, by the way. And for each one of these faces here, as I add a level, you can see it's becoming 4 faces, right? And then now, if I zoomed in on this one face here, if I do another level, that's now become 4 faces.
Oh, so
and
everyone's
again,
4 times
it's now
more.
become 4 faces. So it's exponentially adding detail. And you might also know that it is smoothing it out as well. Like this jagged edge that we've got here, you can see now becomes smoother. So to quickly visualize that, if I just draw it, like imagine you've got like a 90-degree corner, right? Like this. If you add a subsurf modifier, what it's going to do is it's going to add a point here, right? Because this is the extra detail. It's also going to take that point there and it's going to average it out. It's going to average it out between these points. And it's going to create another one there, another one there. So you go then from having that really hard corner there to having something that looks a lot smoother. So it's going to take a point and it's also going to change it to make it look smoother, generally speaking.
Okay.
So there we go. So now as I increase this, you can see it's getting smoother and smoother. Now, the reason there are 2 options here, you've got levels viewport and levels render. So reminder, this gray area that we operate in is
viewport
called
versus
viewport.
render.
The render is the pretty version. So as an example, you can see if I just turned it off for the viewport, it looks very jagged. But then for my render, if I increase that to 3, if I do my render, which you could go up there and render image, or remember the hotkey F12, you can see that that donut is now smooth, but I go back and you can see it's jagged. So the viewport, you want to generally keep it lightweight, and then the render time, that's where you want to get a really nice looking pretty image. So you want to often have 2 different levels. In our case though, I don't really think we need to go beyond 1, even for our final pretty image, because this with shade smoothing turned on is good enough. and we're going to be adding more to the scene later on, so we don't want to make it too complex. So this is actually pretty good. Okay, so we have a perfect donut, and that's the problem. It's too perfect. You could spend decades trying to develop a machine in the real world that made a donut this perfect, and you never would. This is so mathematically precise that the eye will always see this as looking fake. So that's actually a problem you learn pretty quickly in 3D, that
The uncanny
things
valley.
that are too perfect just look fake. So you have to spend time making things look misshapen and adding variation there like you see in the real world, because your eye expects to see it. So how do we do that? How do we make this donut look a little more lumpy and interesting?
Modify the
I
form.
do that by changing the mesh itself. So this mode that we are in right now, where we can click on different objects, is called object mode. And I know that because in the top left hand corner you can see we are in object mode. But if I click the drop down, you can see I get a number of other options here. And these options again will change depending on the object you've got selected. If I've got a lamp, my little light there selected, you can see I've only got object mode. My camera, I've only got object mode. But a mesh will give you extra options here. So let's enter into edit mode. Ooh. Right, now you can see our mesh, our object has become something that looks weird. It's got a bunch of little points on it with lines and very technical. Well, that's because this is actually what the mesh is made up of. These little points here, which you can click on just by selecting, are called your vertices. The singular term is called vertex. I never say that. I like to just call all of them vertices, regardless of whether it's one or two, just because you always get some comments that go, actually, it's called vertex if it is singular. Anyway, so these are called your vertices, and if you have two of them joined by a line, that is called an edge, and if you have four of them forming a face, then it's called a face. So with these, I can quickly change the shape of my object by using the same hotkeys as before, and if I want to move this, then I would simply tap G. Right, and you can see it's now attached to my cursor, and then if I want to confirm its movement, I just do a single left click, and there it is. Now if I go back into object mode, like that, you can see that my mesh has changed.
It's lumpy!
And by the way, the hotkey for jumping in and out of object and edit mode is just tab. Okay, so you can see it's just toggling between those two modes because it's so common that you want to just quickly change things that it's just easily accessible by that.
That's cool.
Now, this is okay.
I'm really
right?
going to need
But
to
you can
remember
see
all this shit.
It's got like some artifacting. It's not the greatest lump, right? So how do we make it look a little more natural? Well, I mean, you could, you move one, drag it out, okay, click, and then I move, the next one next to it, right? I'll move that out, and then I'll move this one out a little bit, and then I move this one out. And it's like, okay, well now I've got the thing, but it took me like 5 actions. Ridiculous, right?
It's a
no
tool.
one wants to do that. No one's got time for that. Thankfully, there is a tool in Blender just for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your toolbar. So if you enable that, now if I hit
proportional to... That's where it was, proportional editing. Very good for that.
for this, and it's called proportional editing, and you can enable it up there in your
Okay, so it's going to be the one next to the little line thingy. This one? Snapping, proportional editing. Okay, toolbar.
So if you enable that, now if I hit G and I move it out, you will see I get a little ring around my cursor there, and that is now changing the mesh around it. Now, a lot of people in my previous tutorials were like, I don't see what's going on. You have to have something selected first.
Squishy.
And then when you hit G, you will see that little circle of influence. Okay, now this circle of influence, if I scroll up, you can see it's shrinking its circle of influence. And if I scroll down, it is expanding its influence. So it's only going to affect what is in that ring. Okay?
I see.
If you are on, if you don't have a mouse with a scroll wheel, you can also change the influence by using page up and page down. And if you don't have page up or page down because you're on a Mac keyboard, then what you have to do is
Why
go
would
to
you want
keymap
to do
and
that?
then change your page up and page down to something else. Just so that you can get around
Okay,
that. But
well then.
guys, you got to get a mouse. Get a mouse with a scroll wheel. I think they're, I don't know, 50 cents or just in the nearest landfill somewhere. Get a mouse because it's going to make your life in 3D a lot easier. Okay, so with this, I can now make quick work of lumpy shapes, okay? So I just drag that out, okay? I've got a little lumpy shape there. Maybe I go down here and I pull this up.
So let's see. How does he move by a little? Is he just using arrow? Oh, arrow keys. I see. Let's make a lumpy donut. Oh, G.
By hitting G, moving it up. Okay, so already this is looking a little more natural, right? Because even if we were making a stylized world for a Pixar movie or something like that, you can't have just a spherical looking donut, sorry, spherical, round looking circular donut, because it just, your eye will see it as fake. So very quickly, I'm able to add a little bit of variation to the donut, just all around it, just a little bit over here. And you can see that I am just changing my circle of influence depending on what size of a lump I want to make. So if I just want to make like a little bit that sticks out, I can make a small circle just by scrolling up, like that. And you just want to do that until you get something that looks a little more natural. I might want to make the inner part as well. Let me just drag that in with a smaller circle.
Ah, I see.
That's pretty good. Let's just have a look from the top. I might actually just drag that out, make it a little bit more like that. But there you go. That's pretty good for a donut. It's still kind of simple. It's not too detailed, but it's got
That's a little
just
bit
enough
too
variation
lumpy.
that it's more interesting to look at. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. Go back into edit mode with tab. Donuts, when they're sitting in the little vat thing, right? They're only like half submerged, so then they have to be flipped. But it means that the bit that's nearest to the surface is getting less heat. So essentially what I'm saying is the bit that's around the donut, the circumference of it, is usually a little bit flatter. So donuts aren't like perfectly round all the way around. They're usually a little bit flatter. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices along here, and then I want to shrink them. Now I could go around one by one like this, which is actually what I used to do when I was learning Blender pre-YouTube days, and there was no tutorials. What I would do this if I wanted to select this. Silly, because there's a function tool for that, and it is edge select. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard and then do a single left click on not the point, but on the edge, like this little line here, you can see it's selected all the way around. So
that's
anything
cool.
that's connected along that line is now selected. So
Cool.
if I want to shrink
So
this,
Alt.
right, what would I do? Well, I mean, yeah, you could
G.
move it around, right? We want to shrink it. We want to change the scale of it. So we would use the hotkey S for scale. So S, and I'm going to scale that in. And I actually don't want proportional editing, so I'm going to turn that off and now scale in and just make it a little bit flatter. And there you go.
No.
See, it just feels a little bit more.
That's it. Where are you for proportional editing? Why? Proportional editing is. Where do you go for proportional editing?
It all the way around. So it's anything that's connected along that line is now selected. So if I want to shrink this the way around, they're usually a little bit flatter. So what I want to do is I want to select these vertices along here, and then I want to shrink them. Now I could go around one by one like this, which is actually what I used to do when I was learning Blender pre-YouTube days and there was no tutorials, I would do this if I wanted to select this. Silly, because there's a function, a tool
Shift
for that,
and click,
and it is
so
edge select. So if you hold down Alt on your keyboard and then do a
Alt
single
and click.
left click on not the points, but on the edge, like this little line here,
Okay.
you can see it's selected all the way around. So it's anything that's connected along that line is now selected. So if I want to shrink this, right, what would I do? Well, I mean, yeah, you could like move it around, right? We want to shrink it. We want to change the scale of it. So we would use the hotkey S for scale. So S, and I'm going to scale that in. And I actually don't want proportional editing. So I'm going to turn.
Okay, so proportional editing. See, S. Sword. Oh, proportional editing. Oop. There we go.
that off, and now scale in. And just make it a little bit flatter. And there you go. See, it just feels a little bit more natural, doesn't it? Looks a little bit closer to what a donut looks like. And by the way, don't worry if yours doesn't look exactly like this, like your lump is a little bit off. Like some people get a little bit too precious with the tutorial. They're going to match exactly everything I do. Like I'm just working on the fly as well. So just make what you think looks good. Maybe you think this is not misshapen enough and you want to add more, go for it, because it might actually turn out better than what mine is. Now, before we move to the next part, how to save. How to save. Blender, very, very easy. You just go save as, and you just get one file. It's called .blend. Very literal file extension, really pushing the limits of.
Oh, let's see here though. Object mode. Let's make it a little bit big here. I'm just kind of curious to see here. Object. Okay.
What a file
I'll come
extension
back to
can
that
be. That's
later.
almost a word, Blender. Anyway, .blend, and that's it. And then next time you open it up, it's exactly like it. It's not like ZBrush where you got like 4 or 5 different ways to save a project or an object or a tool or a. Hate ZBrush. Okay. That's how you save. Now, also, finally, I would say if you need help, because I know if you're stuck and then you leave a YouTube comment, you might not get a reply. If you want immediate help, I've got a Discord, so I'll put the link below.
I'll probably
so like
join that
channel in
Discord
there where you can just ask
for the sake of
specific,
let's learn
donut
shit.
help. So if you're having issues, feel free to jump into that.
I don't have issues so far, but I should probably learn it'll help keep me motivated. Where is this Discord? Ah, there it is. So I'll go ahead and join in there. Okay. Hopping in there. Look, oh, let's see rules. I'll read his rules. Cool, and I will do that as well. Haha. Okay, now that I've joined that, let's get back to it. Okay, let's continue learning. Come back video. Oh no, I've lost it. There it is. Haha.
And also, guys, don't beat yourself up. Like 3D is definitely a has like a steep-ish learning curve. So you're in that steep slope right now. And it's it's really common. Like, a lot of this stuff is very foreign. 3D is very unique. It's very different to a lot of 2D tools. But don't give up. Like, it's definitely achievable to learn and self-learn at home. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to pay for a tutor. It's really easy to get help online nowadays.
What was
so
that?
do make use of that
Yeah,
Discord.
G.
Post comments as well in the YouTube comments if you want to. But I hope you stay with it. So if you're ready to jump to the next part after you've saved your Blend file, go ahead, click here, and I will see you there.
Save that one more time.
Did you guys know that Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default? Or that there's a new
video?
Now we know how Blender functions. Let's online nowadays. So do make use of that Discord. Post comments as well in the YouTube comments if you want to.
So that is next
but
part.
I hope you stay with
Modeling
it. So
the
if you're
icing
ready to jump to the next part
next.
after you've saved your Blend file, go ahead, click here, and I will see you there. Did you guys know that Blender 4.0 had a change that makes it more realistic by default? Or that there's a new technology that is going to expand the uses for 3D exponentially?
No.
Well, you would if you were on my free newsletter called This Week in 3D.
Oh,
It's an
okay.
email
I
from
was
me
sort of listening to
once a
some
month.
AI thingy. Okay, that scared me. It's like, I don't want Blender to have AI. I don't need AI bullshit. But, whew. Okay.
3 to 5 things that I found interesting that week from the world
And let's see. How do I
of
stop
3D.
join this?
So sometimes I share a new tool that I found, a remarkable tutorial, a new Blender feature, a news story that affects the industry. So click the link in the description, enter your email address, and then you will stay up.
I'll probably just join it so I can do some learnings. Oh, join this week in 3D. Okay. I'll go ahead and drop my email here. Obviously not going to shut on service. I don't want to open myself to spam bots. There we go. Perfect. I am subscribed. Cool. Let's get back to it.
To date on the world of 3D.
Let's
it's
see
always
here.
free and it's always written by me. Now, on to the tutorial. Welcome back to the Donut Show, where we make sad little donuts that we cannot eat. This is where we finished up at the end of part 1. We've got our nice looking donut, and now we're going to make that icing, which looks complex but is actually fairly simple. Now, as I mentioned before, if you want to add an object, you go Shift A, right? And then you start with something that resembles what you're trying to create. But we already have something that resembles the exact shape we want to create. It's the donut.
We're
because
gonna
we
clone
want the
it,
icing around the donut. So let's just reuse this information. So we can do that by duplicating the object. And if you don't know the hotkey for it, you could just go Object, and then you'd find it here where it says Shift D. So Shift D. Now, when you hit that, you are in a placement state, essentially. Like, it's duplicated, and it's now saying, where do you want
And
to
of
place
course,
it?
is the
Now, in our case, and actually often, you don't actually want to change its placement. You want to duplicate it exactly where it was. So you can cancel the movement by hitting Escape or right-clicking. Now, when you do that, it looks like it's canceled the duplication, but you can see in your outliner, it has duplicated it. You've got 2 objects, but it's just in the exact same place, which is what we want. So first things first, we need to name them, or else we could get very confused very easily. So you can name an object by just double-clicking it in the outliner and then just typing in the object. The other way you can name something, I'll just show you the second way. If you select the Taurus 0.001, that's your icing object. If you're in the 3D view, where your cursor, is over the 3D viewport, if you hit F2, that's another very quick way that you can name something without having to go up to the outliner to find your object. So with our icing object selected, let's go into edit mode by hitting Tab. So we want the icing on the top, which means this bottom half of our mesh here is redundant. Don't need it. So we want to delete it. So if we just dragged over the bottom here, you can see it looks like we've selected the bottom half of our donut, but if you were to move around, you would see, oh, we haven't actually. It's only selected, annoyingly, what is facing the camera. Where there's a mesh, it's not gone through the mesh. A lot of users find this annoying. I agree. Sometimes it seems like that would be the more default one that would make more sense, but anyway, don't want to argue. So if you want to select through a mesh, you can go up to here in your top navigation, toggle X-ray. If you turn that on, it's going to enable you to see through the mesh. And now, when I drag over it, you can see that I have selected all through the mesh as I move around it. By the way, you might find it like when you're in this state, it's kind of hard to select. Like it's easy to kind of accidentally select what is above it, and depending on what you've got at your end, that might have happened already. So another way to easily just look directly on the side-on of your donut is to just click one of these, like in your gizmo here, instead of just dragging around, just do a single click on either the green one or the red one, the X or the Y. And now we're in that state. You can see it's flattened it, so it's put you in orthographic mode, which actually you can toggle to at any time, just over there, which just makes it easier to just do a single, all the way through the mesh.
There we go.
Select. All right.
Okay.
All right, so we want to delete that. So just hit the delete key. You get an extra option here of what do you want to delete, edges, faces. You want the vertices, that's everything. And now we have, if we go back to object mode, and then let's turn off toggle X-ray as well. And you can see it's working. You got half the donut on top of itself, but as you move around, you can see you get some flickering. Now, this flickering happens, and it's actually a very common, it's actually a good warning sign to you as an artist, because it means you've got faces on top of faces, and the 3D software doesn't know which face it wants to render, right? So it's like sometimes saying it's the front face, no, the back face, the front face, and there's no understanding. Sometimes you can actually spot it in TV shows and like VFX or like low budget stuff. You can see something flickering in the background, and I'm like, ooh, there it is, Z fighting. That's what it's called, Z fighting, if you know what I mean.
I love it.
So what we want to do is we want to give thickness to our icing. So we can do that with a solidify modifier. So adding another modifier, make sure you've got your icing selected on your donut, and then here where you've got add modifier, we're going to go generate
okay, where are we going to add modifier? So okay, add modifier, generate, solidify. Generate, solidify. Oh shoot, it's squishy.
Solidify. Okay. Now it's made it worse. It's actually added a thickness to our mesh there, but it's actually done it the wrong way. So it's with the normals.
It's a donut.
It's trying to put the,
it's just that texture
inside the donut.
But it's a
so
donut.
We can change that by just changing the offset here in the solidifier settings. Just drag that all the way to 1. Some of you might have actually found that it was correct before, just depending on which way your normals were. If that's the case, keep it at -1, but everyone else, keep it at 1. We just want to make sure it's actually outside. Okay. I also, let's just increase the thickness a little bit too. Let's go, 0.025, that looks pretty good. And great, we've got what looks like a yarmulke on our donut. A perfectly straight edge
it's negative.
hat for our donut. So let's make this look more like icing. So the edge is wavy all the way around. So to do this is where we get into the fancy finger magic. Because you're typing lots of keys. Anyway, go into edit mode, and we can see straight away that we can't see the mesh, and that's because the solidify modifier is obstructing our view. So these little boxes here, as I mentioned before, like this is to hide it from viewport, but if you want to just hide it from your edit mode, which is the state that we are in right now, the box next to it is the one that you unchecked, which means in object mode, when you're tabbed in object mode, you can still see it, but edit mode, it's it's temporarily hidden for you. So if I was to select one of these,
what did I break? Okay.
These points here and move it down, you can see that it's working, but it would be again a lot of effort to go round and round and do these one by one. So we want to use that old familiar proportional fall off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now
proportional editing on is over here. Where's proportional editing? Okay.
now as I move it down, let's just lower
Because
this
this is
slider
all
way down
squished
here,
together. Mine's like over this.
and then let's pull this down. Okay, now we'll find issues. If we move to the side here, we can see the first issue we've discovered is that this is separating from our mesh here. And that's not what icing does. When it dribbles down, it follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, undo it a number of times, snap the snap the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that we need to turn on snapping up here. Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snap.
Okay, so let's snapping face. Okay.
Snapping enabled. If we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the bottom bit is snapping to the face, but as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected. So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case, proportional fall-off tool again. So proportional editing on, and now as I move it down, let's just lower the slider way down here, and then let's pull this down. Okay, now we'll find issues. If we move to the side here, we can see the first issue we've discovered is that this is separating from our mesh here. And that's not what icing does. When it dribbles down, it follows the shape of the donut all the way down. So what we want to do is snap, oops, undo it a number of times, snap the vertices to our donut underneath it, right? So for that we need to turn on snap.
So turn on snap.
Thing up here. Okay, now there are a number of ways to snap in Blender. The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful. But we want to snap it to the face. And now with
which one's the snapping tool?
ways to snap in Blender.
Okay, I missed something here. It's like the magnifying glass. Okay. Okay, so it's being way over here throws me off. Okay.
The default way is increment, which just means the like the grid floor there. Like if you were to just like move it around, you can see it's just snapping to the grid floor. Not helpful.
Okay.
But we want to snap it to the face. And now with face snapping enabled, if we move this down, we can see, let's just look here, that the...
So let's see here. Does something. Right, I gotta get my camera view here. Where are you? Let's see, camera options. Camera. Zero. So this is the one that I'm using for, so I'll just use that for the tutorial so I can learn the thing. So let's achieve, I pull that all the way down, it looks like a defective donut. Got it.
Bottom bit is snapping to the face, but as you might have seen, the top bits, the rest of essentially what is inside of our circle of influence with this proportional editing, that's not being affected. Only the little point that we had selected was affected. So that's not what we want either. Normally that would be enough, but in this particular case we want to also snap individual elements to
face project.
Now when we pull this down, you should see that these are also no longer clipping through the donut.
But they are.
Still, we have issues. Why is that? Well, it is actually working correctly. We can see these are not going through the mesh, so why does it look like it is? The reason for that is that there's actually just not enough information here. So if we go side on, you can see, right, like we've got this point here, and then we've got another point down here, and then we've got this long stretch in between, right? So that means that this part of the donut, oh gosh, that goes that goes around like that is just not, there's nothing to snap it to, essentially. So what we need to do to fix this is just add more geometry. So these little vertices here, we need more of those vertices. So we can do that by actually using the subdivision surface modifier, because although it is a modifier, you can apply the modifier, and the modifier currently is adding geometry. So let's just
Okay, so let's go back to the modifiers.
apply it. So to apply it, we just click this little drop down here next to the modifier and then go apply. Now if we, I mean, nothing should have changed from this view because the same information is being displayed, but in edit mode you should now see exponentially more faces, because here where there was one face before, you can see there's now.
Okay, I lost my faces. Oh, great. Bro, you wanna view my faces? Okay, I've lost my... Let's see, icing. There it is. Okay.
A lot more. Right. 4x. Okay, 4x. Okay. So now if we pull down, we should see it is snapping. And if we go into this mode, you can see that it's now conforming to the mesh in a much more snug way, because there's information there for it to use. Now this shading artifact here that we can see, this, don't worry about that, we'll fix that in just a moment. But I need to show, because I've shown you like 4 things that we need to enable for this to work. I got to show you one more, because if I pull down and if I scroll up, you'll see something. Okay, if I was to click, we get this horrible problem here, and I've done this tutorial enough, and enough people have hit this issue that I need to call it out specifically, because it seems to be a big point that a lot of people just don't know where to go from. What's happened is if we use a what's it called, the circle of influence for our proportional editing, if that is so high, it's actually high enough to reach the mesh on the other side of the donut, and then because we've got snapping, it's now projecting that, snapping it to the front, which is creating this like something that's a nightmare to fix. I mean, in fact, it's easy just to start from scratch than to try to fix that.
Oh,
so
okay.
if we want, sorry, there's a lot of noise. To fix this, we need to hide the part of the mesh that we don't want to be influenced by our proportional tool, right? So to do that, there is an easy way to do it. We can actually do it very precisely. So if with this little bit of the donut here, if I just hold down Alt and then do a left click, as I mentioned before, that selects the ring, okay? And we could, we could do that all the way up, but actually there's a little, I don't know if it's an Easter egg. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus, Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like select the next. It's kind of a cool tool that not many people know about. Control plus. That will enable the select more tool. And if you use Control plus, Control minus goes the other way, you can see that it's expanding out. So Control plus will just like select the next vertex along a chain, roughly speaking.
Why is my mouse button not working?
And you can see we can very quickly select all the parts of the mesh that we don't need. Right? Very cool. By the way, if Control plus doesn't work for you because you're on a laptop or something, I'll select more, less. You can also do it here. Anyways, to hide this part of the mesh, it's H. H for hide. So when you're in this state, it looks as though it's been deleted. It's very... Sometimes you don't know where part of your mesh, and then you forgot that you've got hide turned on. If parts of your mesh are hidden and you want to bring it back, it's Alt H.
So H to hide and then Alt H to bring it back. Or if you can't remember it for whatever reason, you can also find it. Okay, it's underneath mesh. There we go. Mesh. Reveal hidden or hide selected. Okay, so that's the other
icing.
one. But you can get my keyboard shortcut that's in the link. It's
Oh,
free. Just
click.
use that
There
and
we
you
go.
won't forget a lot of these
So
handy
shift
shortcuts.
plus.
All right, so now finally, after all that, after 4 different ways of and problems to explain,
There we go.
we can now take part of this mesh and drag it down, and it will work correctly. Haha. So now we get to now finally be an
Oh,
artist
gosh.
and go like, what sort of edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click,
Oh,
and then
stop.
because my cursor is closest to the Z axis, it's now snapping.
Wait, why
to the
am I
Z
not
axis.
able to do that
So
all
that's
the
why I
time?
mentioned before that it's
Icing?
really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction.
Oh,
you wanna
that's
go,
fine.
and then
Oops.
just tap the middle click of the which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button. Because it's like no other application seems to use it besides scrolling. But Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like 90% of the operations is going to be middle click. But anyways, as you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking
Okay,
shape
let's
around.
try that again.
We get to now finally be an artist and go like, what sort of edge or what sort of icing do I want to make this look like? So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm hitting G to pull it down, and then I'm just single middle click, and then because my cursor is closest to the Z axis, it's now snapping it to the Z axis. So that's why I mentioned before that it's really handy. You don't have to think of the letter and type it in. You just go in the general direction you want to go, and then just tap the middle click of the which is your scroll wheel, right? Middle click. It's such a weird button that you have to call it out. It's the scroll wheel button. Because it's like no other application seems to use it besides
What's
scrolling.
that, H?
But Blender is like, no, we're going to use it for like 90% of the operations is going to be middle click. But anyways, as you can see, I'm not paying particularly too much attention to it, but I'm just making a wavy looking shape around it. You might also want to make some bits that go the opposite direction, right? And then maybe pull, so you've got like big shapes as well as medium shapes and some small shapes. Big, medium, small. It's the recipe for appealing design. Big, medium, and small details. But I digress. By the way, I should mention, if you're stuck, don't feel bad, because there was certainly a lot of finickiness going on with this donut here, and we're definitely in the steep part of that curve at the moment. Do make use of my Discord if you are stuck. I created it literally so that people could get instantaneous help. I don't have any other benefit for it, so it's there so that you can find help. Link is in the description, and there's like donut help chat room where you can post screenshots of your problem, and then
There we
people can help each other
go.
out. So do make use of that. Now, our shading issue here, this darkened edge, is actually going to fix itself by fixing another issue. So it's a two birds, one solution kind of problem. This 90-degree edge here for this icing, not ideal. Everybody knows that a real icing would create like a rounded edge there, right? So we can fix that just by adding another subsurf modifier. Because you might remember I mentioned, like, yes, if you've got 3 vertices, it'll create like another vertex here and another vertex here, but it'll also like round it out. It'll pull this one back, so you end up with a rounded corner. So right here in your modifier stack, we're going to add modifier, generate
stuff
subdivision
disappear?
surface. Now, the order.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out why did my stuff disappear? Wait, what? Modifiers. Solidify. Where the hell did my icing go? because I mean I have the formed and stuff, but I just donut modifier subdivision. Oh God, what? Oh no. Oh, there we go. It's the edit mode versus actual object mode. Okay. Oh my God, it's actually looking like a donut of sorts. Cool.
Of these does matter. Okay, you want your solidify at the top and the subdivision.
Solidify at the top. Where did my subdivide go? Let's see, modifier. There we go. Looks more like a donut now. So solidify and subdivide.
After it. So Blender works top to bottom, and it's important it's in this way because you want the
I'm
extrusion
doing the
to happen
things.
first, and then in order to round
There
that
is a
edge, it
lot
happens-
to
has
this.
happen
Oh my
in a
God, didn't realize that
secondary
donut was so
step.
complex.
So solidify on top, subdivision underneath. Now whilst we're here and we're looking at the close-up, nice little profile of this edge of this icing, another issue to call out, you can see it's got this this shape that goes around. Yes, so far so good, but then it goes up. And it's like, it'd be better if it went around and then tucked in and touched the edge, because that would look more like real liquid would. So we can solve that by just changing one of the settings in the solidify modifier. It's not one of those things that you would figure out or know where it is. It's just over time you learn where some of these settings are. But essentially here, the edge data. So we want to change the edge data to say that before you do the solidify step, add a crease on the inner part right here. If we increase this all the way to 1, it now creates a sharpened edge just on that inner part there. So the rest of it is a smoothed edge, but the middle one, there's a crease, so it's making a sharp edge there. And it just gives it just a little bit more realism. Just looks a little bit closer to what you would imagine real icing would do.
Okay.
Okay, now for the cool bit. All right, so if you look at reference of donuts, right, yes, you've got these little wavy bits, but where the icing is really liquidy, it'll often break off from this wave here, and it'll create a trail that goes down underneath the donut, right? It just sort of drips all the way down. Whoops.
Okay.
So we can do that, but not the way we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then
the
like,
lighting
dragged
real
it all the way down like
fast.
that.
I want to change the lighting so it's easier to look at. There we go. Much less
There wouldn't be
painful to
enough
look at.
information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look, and it doesn't look great. Okay, so essentially we need to give it more information, and we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surfaces. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice and then the one next to it by holding down Shift, I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select two things at once, it's Shift select. Anyways, so if we select two vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this. So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face.
Okay, let's go and look at the view here. Wait, what's that over there? Why did that randomly select? Do I have like the X-ray select on? I do. That's awkward. And how do I extrude again?
Vertices like that, we want to extrude it downward by hitting E. So when you tap E, it's similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this. So I'm going to move it down to, yeah, like about there where I want the trail to stop, and I'm just going to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently. And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is exactly what we want. And in fact, I want it to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices. I'm going to pull it down again. And then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to we were doing it before. If we just took one of these points and then like dragged it all the way down like that, there wouldn't be enough information there, right? You can see you just get this like stretched look and it doesn't look great, okay? So essentially we need to give it more information. And we couldn't just do it by like adding more and more subdivision surfaces. We need to actually like break this shape here and create a new shape that goes down. So we need to extrude. So if I select this vertice and then the one next to it by holding down Shift, I don't think I mentioned it, but yeah, if you want to select two things at once, it's Shift, Select. Anyways, so if we select two vertices like that, we want to extrude it.
Hi, Ann.
Hey, how's it going?
Making a donut. Yep, it's actually looking very donut-like so far, and I'm just gonna stream it. See, I have a donut.
Yeah. Okay, I'm fine.
Yep. Oops, wrong button. I got a tab on. Okay, so what's up?
I'm kind of planning trying to put it back here real quick.
Hey, if you got the energy, do it.
Yeah, it's mostly just procrastinating and other stuff I don't want to do. What even less.
Like what?
5 months. Like when they got done with the Linux stuff, I looked at that, I'm like, my eyes kind of glazed over. I'm like,
Well, take a quick break, do the grass, get back
I
to it.
took a quick break already.
Then you should probably do the Python.
It's not going anywhere right now, but like, it just comes down to just.
So I guess the question is, what does it do?
I'm still working on getting the Python stuff caught up from the fact he never reminded me for 2 freaking weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I want to at least get one more thing done, but like still, this is like because I get a meeting scheduled tomorrow for basically like code eval kind of thing for the new term project is. This is code eval, setting a meeting notes, code and stuff like that. So.
Okay.
But yeah. I'm just like. What can you see on?
Yeah. Let's see. So extruding.
Downward by hitting E. So when you tap
so it's
E,
literally
it's
just E.
similar to G in that you're in a placement state now, saying where do you want to place this. So I'm going to move it down to.
Oh,
yeah,
that
like
actually
there
just
where I
makes
want the trail
another
to stop.
face.
And I'm just going
Okay.
to do click, left click, and it's now placed it there. Now, it's hard to see it, but if I just switch to wireframe, you can see what it's doing. So it's created this breakaway shape here, an entirely new face that's completely separate to what we've got there currently.
Okay.
And what this means is if we go to object mode, you can see it's not just like continuing this form here, it's pulled it down, right? Which is
Okay.
exactly what we want. And in fact, I wanted to go even further than that. So I'm going to select those two vertices. I'm going to pull it down again, and then I'll do it again. And the reason I've done this 1, 2, 3 is that this detail here is important so that it conforms to the shape of the donut. Because if there's not enough, you're going to have that clipping issue that I showed you earlier. So that's pretty good. And now we're going to do it again. Originally, in my earlier versions of the donut, I only did like one of these. But then I noticed that in the render, the final render, it's often the most interesting part of the donut. So now I'm thinking, yeah, just do it all the way around the donut. Just add the bit that looks cool. Add more of that. So here, so wherever there's essentially like a big dip is what I'm looking for. Like where the liquid would sort of build up and then like the surface tension there would be just too much and then it would break away.
Okay.
Down,
Oh, come on.
down underneath like that. And we're doing another
Happy
big
little
one.
donuts.
Like that, and down, and down. And that's pretty good. Haha. Lovely. So, that concludes, finally, this.
Okay, so let's go ahead and find. Okay, so I'll grab you and you. Boop you. Boop you. Boop you. There we go. Pop that down. Pop that down. And pop that down. Okay.
This heavy part of the tutorial. So, if you're ready to watch the next part, hope you're not giving up. You can click there on the screen.
There
See
we
there.
go.
Make sure you
Yeah,
subscribe as
my
well
cat's
if you
interested in the
haven't.
donuts.
A large number of you don't.
For anyone who does not know it, eh?
Tutorials. That's what you need to do.
the donut.
Self-promotion right there. Thanks, guys. See you in the next part. Congrats. You didn't give up. You made it to part 4. You clicked on
So,
the next part of the video. There's always like less viewers
save
each
as
video as you go down. So you're here. Well done. Thumbs up.
part
As you can tell by the title of this
3.
video, we're going to learn about sculpting. But first, I should call out, if you have a problem with your mesh now, those problems can be amplified the further you go along. So it helps to do a technical check now, make sure you don't have any problems before we move along. So to look for it, go into edit mode. And first of all, by the way, if you can't see that middle part of your mesh, it's because remember we temporarily hid it. So you can bring it back by hitting Alt-H, and that will bring back the rest of the mesh. And then we're looking for issues with the mesh, like right here. So this is a really common problem following this tutorial, because when you're projecting parts of the mesh, if it was like side on to the camera, it will project it that way, and then you can have like overlapping parts of the mesh. So that creates this artifact here,
So what is
which will be exaggerated
that?
when we add more detail to it. So we just want to drag that back. So turn on snapping, and I'll keep
think that's
proportional
okay
turned
there,
off, and
maybe?
I'm just going to move this back over here just to move
Yeah, what
each of these
is-
points back. Another very common problem is you might have parts that have separated from your mesh.
Yeah.
Now you can quickly fix this if you just like selected the point and then hit G to move it. When you're in that state, it's also snapping it to the mesh.
Okay, so Okay, that works. Cool.
Now you could do that all the way along, like select, tap G, then click, select, tap G, then click. But that's, anybody's got time for that. Let's make Blender do the work for us.
Okay.
So there's a tool that's just designed for this, and it's called the Shrink Wrap Modifier.
Ooh.
So over to our trusty modifier stack, we're going to add yet another modifier. So add modifier. It's not
Okay, good.
generate, it's under default.
So let's see here, add modifier. The form.
Form, which we haven't accessed before. New modifiers. Ooh, the one we're looking for is shrink wrap. And first of all, hasn't done anything because it needs to know what the target is. What is the mesh that we're shrink wrapping our mesh to? So with this little eyedropper tool, you can see when you've clicked it, my cursor's changed to an eyedropper. And now if I hover over objects, I got the name of it. So I want to click on the object that is the donut, and now it's snapped to the donut and made it worse. Why,
Yeah.
Andrew, would you make us do that? Remember, the order of your modifier stack matters. So the reason this happened is because we've done it after the solidify mod. So if it works top to bottom, we want the shrink wrap to happen before any of the extrusion happens. So now that it's there, it's correct. And this is what it looks like before.
How do I move it? Okay, that works. Haha.
Before, and this is after. And it's subtle, right? And you'll probably see this across your mesh, like little subtle changes where maybe it just separated off the mesh. It just wasn't quite a perfect alignment, but this will just correct that. So, great. We don't need this here now. We can just apply it because it was just a once-off operation, and now...
Oh, okay. So how do I apply it?
So if it works top to bottom, we want the shrink wrap to happen before any of the extrusion happens. So now that it's there, it's correct. And this is what it looks like before, and this is after. And it's subtle, right? And you'll probably see this across your mesh, like little subtle changes where maybe it just separated off the mesh. It just wasn't quite a perfect alignment, but this will just correct that. So, great. We don't need this here now. We can just apply it because it was just a once-off operation.
Oh, cool.
And now
Okay, and that makes modifier permanently. Oh, not allowed from edit mode. Fine. That's awesome as hell. Okay.
mesh should be
I missed
perfectly
it when you
flat.
mentioned that before.
And assuming you haven't got any other issues going on, again, make sure you use my Discord. If you do have issues and you need someone to help, make use of the community. So use that
Yes,
and post your problem.
it's so
I'm sure
cool.
people can help
It's
out.
so cool. Oh my
Alright,
gosh.
So, we want to do some sculpting. Now, why do we want to sculpt? Well, because if you look at reference photos of donuts with icing on them, you'll see that icing is obviously a liquid, and liquid does weird things. One of the weird things that it does is that it will pool in certain areas. It's not like a uniform amount all the way on it. So the most obvious being like at the end of this trail here, there would be more that would accumulate at the end there. And I think the reason for it is that because it's a viscous fluid, once it runs out of enough fluid, there's not enough to kind of push it forward, but there's enough for it to build up. So you would have like a build up here on each of these ends, but you would also have build ups all along the edge. And you can see it in reference photos. Like here, we've got this like clear, was it like a glaze? And basically the areas there where it looks whiter,
Okay.
that's a thickened area. So we essentially want to replicate that across our donut. So we can't do that currently. Like if you go into edit mode, we don't have any mesh to work with because the extrusion, the thickened part, is happening via this modifier.
Well
so
done.
we need to make the modifier real. So again, we're just going to apply it. Drop down, apply. Now
Okay.
in edit mode,
So we'll go solidify, apply, or in edit mode.
we have that part of the mesh to work with.
Oh, too cool.
We could, if you wanted to, come in here and like select the points that you want to add, you know, a bulge to, and then very carefully come in and tap G, and then, oh, I've got snapping turned on, turn that off. Pull this out, right? And go like that and go, yep, there's a little bulge there, but that's very tedious to first select a point, then tap a key to move it. It's very tedious. So that's really like you just need to use another tool to do the job. So edit mode is one tool, and it's good for like very precise things when you need to get precise things. But for more like organic shapes, more freehand stuff, that's where sculpting comes in. So at the top here, we've just been flipping between object and edit mode, but the one underneath it is sculpt mode. So when we go into that mode, you'll see that we have on the left-hand side all of these tools.
Okay. I've missed something here. Sculpt. Okay, there it is. Sculpt mode. Oh, that's too cool.
That appear. And I mean, this isn't a sculpting like tutorial, really. We're just really going to scratch the surface. But they do different things. Different sculpting things. Like, let's just use the default tool here. Can't really see much happen. Let's just turn up the strength and the size of it. Like, it just pulls out that part.
Oh, shit.
And even that quick little one stroke, imagine if you had to select each of those points and pull them out one by one. Like, that's why this tool is the appropriate tool for this kind of job, right? Because it's very quickly going to enable us to add lots of complex shape. Very cool. So, the tool that we're looking for is actually... It's this one.
Oops, one second. Let me go ahead. Oof. I need to clean my kitty up. Yeah, there we go. Let's get that drill out, huh? Yeah. I know you're not a fan of it, but let's go ahead and clean that off, huh? Yeah. Good kitten, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Brush, which is just conveniently, and the size of it, like it just pulls out that part of it. And even that quick little one stroke, imagine if you had to select each of those points and pull them out one by one. Like, that's why this tool is the appropriate tool for this kind of job, right? Because it's very quickly going to enable us to add lots of complex shape. Very cool. So the tool that we're looking for is actually, it's this one, the inflate brush, which is just conveniently the I hotkey, inflate. By the way, if you want to change the size of brushes in Blender, I mean, you've got these ones here, you've also got the strength slider here, but there is a hotkey just to change the size of the brush with F. So F to change the size of the brush, and you just pull out with your cursor to make it bigger, and then pull in to reduce it, and then do a single left click to confirm. You can also change the strength with Shift F. So Shift F, pull out, click, and then Shift F, pull in, click. Anyways, so if I was to draw on this, you can see that I'm inflating that edge. I could also inflate here. But you very quickly realize, like, look at that. Look at that. What is that, right? The eye is going to see that. As a pro tip, your eye is, like, if you're going low res, don't go low res for things that are round, because your eye is very quickly going to spot low poly things. Actually, just last night I was playing Spider-Man, the Miles Morales one, and there was like this coffee cup that was on a table, and then you walk, and it looks fine, like as a background asset, but then part of it, the mission, you had to go up and read something on the table, and you had to get close to this coffee cup, and it was like 8 vertices. It just looked like almost looked like a nut on a wheel of a car, right? Just like that jagged. So, anyways, what I'm saying is this is a rounded form, so we need more information. We need more detail to sculpt on. The reason this is jagged, and the reason there's not enough detail here, is that just even though we have a subsurf modifier, a subdivision modifier, it's applying it after we do the sculpt mode. So when you're in sculpt mode, it's still just using your raw mesh here, and then it does this as a secondary step. So if we want to sculpt into this detail, we need to apply this. So I'm going to use more than one. I'm going to use 2 because I want to have even more detail. So importantly, by the way, if you're applying a subdivision modifier, even though you've got 2 levels here, it will always use just the viewport. So your render amount here could be whatever, but when you hit apply, it's just going to apply whatever is in the viewport. So I'm going to go 2 levels and hit apply. Now look at this. Ooh, we have 16 times the detail because we had level 1, which would be 4x, a 4x multiply, and then 4x of 4x,
Gotcha.
16. So we have 16 times the vertices to play with. So now when we go into sculpt mode, look at it now. When we sculpt, look at that. So much more room to work with and much more fun. So now that I'm in that state, I'm going to just do little circles with this brush on each of these points here. And the reason I'm doing like little circles like this is that by default the stroke state is what is it, space. You can switch it to airbrush if you want, and then you can just click and hold it there, but I find that to actually be like harder to control, so I just keep it in space mode and then just do like little circles, and then that enables you to just kind of continue adding more pressure as you move your mouse. So a little circle like that, and there you go. Very quickly,
This kind of feels like
already
Bob Ross.
we have a more interesting looking shape across it. So another brush, another tool, I guess you call. Is it a brush? Or I think it's technically they're called brushes. But anyways, another one that you use all the time is grab, and conveniently it's the hotkey G. And what this does is just like pushing clay with your finger. It's like, eh, 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 eh. It's really cool. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm actually just exaggerating the design. Because that is what makes appealing design. It's exaggerating the addition and subtraction that you see in a shape, even though in the real world you might not see this like tapered thing like that. Because it's got this bulbous end, you want to draw more attention to that kind of globule at the end there. And to do that, yeah, if you just make this a little bit tapered using this tool, it can do that. And we get to learn about a new tool in Blender, which is the whole point of this tutorial. So, yeah. All right.
Cool.
Pull this around, pull this around. Just click and drag and click and drag. You can change the shape, size of the brush with F. And you've got more time than me, so maybe make this better than what I'm doing really quickly.
Okay.
But just get, you know, generally a shape like that, and it should look a little nicer. Okay, so now let's do that raised edge all the way around the rim of this. Now, in previous versions of this tutorial, I said just use the inflate brush and then just like draw across it. The problem with this is that this is so imprecise, and you can accidentally like draw over another bit, and then you look at it side on and you get these like noticeable like divots across the donut, and it's not very it's very hard to do because you keep like accidentally clicking off it and then on it, and you get this like jagged like dig 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 dig. It's not very appealing, the point is. So let's go back. We can learn about another tool. It's another excuse to learn about another tool, and that tool is called the mask tool. So it's actually in the list here, but I never remember what it is. It's just hit M for mask, and it's this one. And what this enables you to do is if you just draw on it, you get this grade shape, right? And then when you're using another tool, like say you switch to the inflate brush now, and if you draw over this, let me just increase this. Yeah, if you drew over this, you can see it's applying an inflation to everything except the area that is dark. And that's how you can create like, you know, a skin lesion on a zombie or something like that. So a mask is very useful in sculpting, used a lot, and we're going to use it in just this case. What we're going to do is mask out just this area along the rim there, and then we're going to apply a constant inflate value to just the area that we've masked. So first use the mask tool. Mask, and it doesn't really make sense to use like a half opaque mask, so we're gonna
Oops, wrong button. Meant to do that here.
set the strength all the way to 1.
It says mask 2.
And then I'll use a brush size about here. So essentially, where do I want the inflation? Like, do I want this much inflation on the rim? No, probably something about here.
Okay. So around the edge there, so.
And then I'm just going to paint a darkened value all the way across it. I just want to make sure that it's, you know, fairly even. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but fairly even across it. And
okay, whoops. Okay, it's kind of cool. Just learning to do the things. I very much appreciate this tutorial. It's actually very relaxing, you know? It's like, I honestly enjoy this. Oops, let's Control Z that. How do I clear that donut there? I'll figure that part out later. Maybe, is there a way to subtract? I don't know if there's a way to subtract the mask. Okay. There we go.
I obviously don't want it to be in this part because that, you know, the liquid has flowed all the way down and it's broken the trail and it's gone down there, so I don't want any raised area there. And again, I apologize if this was like tedious, but it's
actually very
it's a way to learn piece by piece. Okay, here, hey, speaking of which, I forgot. With the sculpt tools in Blender, for whatever reason, it has assumed by default that you might want to sculpt on the other side of your mesh. So you can see I've got this smear here, and that's because somewhere I was painting over here, I went through the mesh and it painted on the other side of the mesh over there. Very annoying. So I can undo it. It's just easier than like repainting that whole thing. And what you want to do with your mask tool is underneath brush, set it to front faces.
Well then, okay, I guess we're undoing all that. Well, today I learned, so it's not a complete loss. I mean, this is a learning donut, so we're just gonna paint one side only. Okay, so we go down the brush. One side only. Front faces only. Okay! And that's the best way to do it. I was wondering like where those little other
And that
dark
means
spots
when
are
you
coming
paint,
from.
it should mean that as you draw, it could still happen, just be careful, but it should happen less. It shouldn't happen like on the opposite side of the same mesh. Anyways, it should happen less. By the way, I didn't call it out because it's not essential, but if you do ever want to isolate and only see the selected object, / is the isolation mode. So / on the number pad or the actual normal keyboard.
Oh, that's so cool! Yes, that's
So
awesome.
now with the mask brush, with front faces only enabled, I can paint along it and
Okay. See, this is like, okay, I'm sorry I'm going so slow, but like, yeah, there's a bit to learn from the looks of it. This is awesome as heck. Okay, and let's go ahead and continue doing some things here. Hope people are enjoying this so far. Hope they're not too bored. As honestly, I'm just having an absolute blast drawing a donut, or I mean making donuts in 3D. Like, I never realized so much went into it, because when I saw like people learning donut, it's like, oh, you made a donut, big what? Like I guess like I'm guilty of not being able to appreciate all that goes into making a donut, like all these deformations and like using masks and stuff. And I can or little modifiers here. I didn't realize you could actually apply a modifier, and that's awesome as heck. So like, I don't know, for me, I think it's the coolest thing in the world, learning, because I was always kind of anxious at kind of pulling the curtain and learning how things work behind the scenes would kind of, you know, ruin the magic for me a little bit. And that maybe that was either just me procrastinating, or maybe one of the reasons why I wasn't so curious or wasn't so motivated to go ahead and learn this stuff. But this is actually really freaking cool, because yes, I realize I'm just making a donut, but everything that goes into making the donut, it is so cool to me, you know? Okay, this is so cool. Let's see here. What am I doing? I just spaced out. What was it? I was going to do something. Oh yeah, I was going to check in my Discord and see if anything else was. Okay, general. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, this is so dang cool. Okay, I think I got all my donut there. I evenly get it up a little bit more. Got a little bit more there. There we go. Definitely looking better. Might do the same thing inside too later. Okay.
Should happen less, essentially. All right. I don't know what to say.
This is
But
awesome.
this doesn't take long once you've set it up. And assuming you've got the strength of 1, by the way, you don't want to have areas with like half opaque, right? Because we want to have a constant value across it as we inflate it. And we should get a nice raised edge that goes all the way along the donut. Okay, great. Just clean it up if you've got any areas that look a little untidy, a little unkempt.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, that way we have even. Honestly, this is actually very soothing. It's like whenever I draw IRL, it's just kind of get into it, and you know, just kind of doodle. It's very, very soothing to me, just doing these little things. Kind of just filling in and evening things out. Okay, there we go. Oops. Gotta even that out a little bit. Okay, I love it. There we go. There we go. Okay.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So, as I mentioned, the mask will actually mask out the area so you can't paint on it. We obviously want to only paint on the area that we mask, so we want to invert it by just hitting Control I, same hotkey as Photoshop, etc.
Oops.
And then,
Oops.
obviously, if we went to the inflate brush and then we just painted, like, yes, we're only now painting onto that area, but it also doesn't solve our problem of like different values across it. So we want to apply a uniform inflation.
So let's go to inflation. But we're not going to do it yet because we want to do whatever he says there. So inflate is a little bubble. Okay.
On just these areas. So there is a tool in the sculpt tools called, where is it? Mesh filter. So I will be honest, it's probably the laziest implementation of a tool in Blender. Like, mesh filters, they're not really well documented. You kind of have to just learn how they work. But unlike all these other brushes here, the way this one works is it's applying a uniform value to the entire mesh, so it doesn't actually matter where you click on the mesh, it's going to apply it, and it's applying what is in the filter types listed here. So if I just click, this is the other thing you have to learn, if I drag to the right, I'm inflating. If I drag to the left, I'm deflating, and sort of subtracting the opposite direction. You just kind of have to learn that that's how this specific tool works. My theory is, by the way, to go on a rant, ZBrush's user experience and interface is so arcane,
The
so
best
badly
donut ever.
put together from ideas over the last 2 decades.
It's
They never
growing
had any
into
thought
a
in the
mushroom.
process, they just lumped
Okay.
it all in there. And Blender's sculpting tools competes with that. So they're like, hey, yeah, the filter tools, yeah, they're not the easiest to
glorious.
understand, but at least we're not ZBrush. That's my theory. It's my working theory I'm going with. But anyways, point is now that we're in this, you can see we're applying a uniform value to everything. Hooray for us. I might also, I'm going to set the strength of this to 0.1, and that just means that as I move the cursor, it's applying less of a value for the movement, so I can use smaller movements. The
Yeah.
other thing though is this is a little like, it almost looks, if we go into object mode, it looks like a tube almost around the edge of it. It's not very nice. It basically, the edge that we've got here is too hard, so we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth, mask. Okay. Now, if we use the inflate, just to the right a little bit.
Okay, so let's see. Mask. Where do you go for that? Let's go that slightly over here.
It's a little like, it almost looks, if we go into object mode, it looks like a tube almost around the edge of it. It's not very nice. It basically, the edge that we've got here is too hard, so we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth, mask.
Okay. The mask. Smooth mask.
Okay. Now, if we use the inflate, just to the right a little bit, I'm just going to go with
So it's mask, a smooth mask.
that. Let's go object mode and see how that looks. That's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So, yeah, that's roughly it. Now, there's a little bit of artifacting there because the way the mask
How do you
works is it's
change
kind
it?
of, it's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So, what here is too hard, so we can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth, mask. Okay. Now, if we use the inflate, just to the right a little bit, I'm just going to go with that. Let's go object mode and see how that looks. That's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly.
Oh, that looks like a donut.
More. There we go. Great. So, yeah, that's roughly it. Now, there's a little bit of artifacting there because the the way the mask works is it's kind of that feathering thing. It's not very exact, and it's kind of got some values in between it. So we can smooth that out in sculpt mode by first of all just clearing the mask.
Okay, so back to sculpt mode. Now what is that thing that he did? Shift, like... What is that weird mask thingy? What was that?
By first of all just clearing the mask. That's roughly it. Now there's a little bit of artifacting there because the way the mask works is it's kind of that feathering thing. It's not very exact, and it's kind of got some values in between it. So we can smooth that.
How did you get into that? Object mode. How did you pull up that menu? Wait, no, what is this down here? I don't know what the heck that's all about, but... How do you get this menu here? It's got a little circle menu, it's weird. Oops. Okay. I'm gonna ask a quick question, I guess, on the Discord. Circular. Let's see here. And there's actually a donut section for that, so let's see. There we go, the regular thing. There we go. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's period. Wait, do I? Wait, what? Do I? No. Let's see. I'm hitting period. So apparently, you gotta buy numlock is on and all that. Oh. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it's just literally period. Okay, now I know. Okay, there we go. So, now that I've got that, so this menu, individual origins. Now that I'm done being distracted,
We can smooth out that edge by using mask, smooth mask. Okay.
okay,
Now, if we use the inflate, just touch to the right.
there
of
we
it.
go.
I'm just gonna go with that. Let's go object mode and see how that looks. That's pretty good. I might actually go just a little bit more, just exaggerate it slightly more. There we go. Great. So, yeah, that's roughly it. Now, there's a little bit of artifacting there because the way the mask works is it's kind of that.
How do you remove the mask? Just go to. There we go. Object mode.
Feathering thing. It's not very exact and it's kind of got some values in between it. So we can smooth that out in sculpt mode by first of all just clearing the mask and then using the smooth tool. By default it's too high, so just turn it down and I'm just going to smooth that edge and that'll just sort of clear up some of this artifacting. It's a little too high. For whatever reason, the smooth tool, which also you can access at any point when you're in sculpt mode just by holding down shift and it'll.
What the heck is mask mode? Okay, mask. So clear mask. Oh.
Down shift and it'll temporarily invoke, and I'm just going to smooth that edge, and that'll just sort of clear up some of this artifacting. It's a little too high. For whatever reason, the smooth tool, which also you can access at any point when you're in sculpt mode just by holding down shift, and it'll temporarily...
Okay. There we go.
Invoke the smooth tool, and it'll use the value that is on the smooth tool. So you'll be in this mode, and then you hold down shift, and it'll actually not use this value, but the value that's on the smooth tool. Again, ZBrush is the competitor, so some things are a little weird here. Anyways, so it's a little too high. Just turn it down, and now we've got a nice value. And I'm just smoothing this out just to clear up some of the artifacting all the way around the mesh. Ba-doop, boop, boop. And that's it. Lovely. Hey, if you've made it this far, 3D is in the cards. It's for you.
Yeah.
Because we've done some fairly complex things. So if you're a beginner and you're just getting started in Blender, congrats. Because it is a steep learning curve, but you have learned some very complex modeling and some sculpting. So congrats, you've made it this far. Why not continue on the series? Click here to see the next video.
Yep, let me go ahead and...
This is where we finish.
Let me go ahead and save this. Because that's part 4. So let's see, that's part 4 blend. There we go, save that. Okay.
Just at the end of the last part, and we are ready for some materials. Before we continue, do a check over though, because I looked inside my donut and I saw this, which shouldn't be.
Clever.
Here, obviously, so make sure you don't have any hidden meshes that should definitely not be there. You've only got your camera, your donut, your icing, and your light. Okay.
I love it.
Materials. Let's do some materials. If we jumped into our render mode, that little button that I showed you on the first part, that takes you into rendered view mode, you can see we've got a lamp and it's lighting our donut in a very depressing, cold gray. So let's...
You okay? Hey.
That carries down.
You're awesome.
It took a lot of going through that because those weeds were thick and wet.
Oh
So
no.
it's like, okay, if you step forward, okay, take a step back. Like, trying to go.
Oh, I know that pain.
Those parts of it.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Fine, it's done. Not going to the gym, I got that done today.
Yeah.
45 minutes of strenuous activity, go get it.
Sweet. You got
You
this.
want a protein thing?
Actually, I haven't had lunch dinner such. Oh, you know, folks, I'll be right back because I've been working on this donut for a bit. So we will be back in a bit. I'm just going to do the thing is. So I'll go ahead and just go do this, and we'll be right back.
Yeah,
it's just you and me. I never thought I'd feel like this. Yeah. I never thought I'd feel like this. Ooh, never thought I could. Never thought I'd be on my shit, be on my. I'm spending my time in love like I should. No more struggling, I'm all good. I never thought I'd feel like this. Feel like I'm so cold. Yeah, my heart's sinking like a stone. I'm so cold. Yeah, my heart's sinking like a stone. I'm so cold. Yeah, my heart is sinking like a stone. Cold. I'm so cold. Yeah, my heart is sinking like a stone. I'm so cold. Yeah, my heart is sinking like a stone. When I close my eyes, I can almost see it. When I take a breath, you fill up my lungs. And if my mind worked backwards just for a minute, I'd hold on to you before the memory's gone. I remember you, you lift my spirit. With you high is all I'm feeling. Remember how we felt alive. I remember you, you make me stronger. Can't go without it much longer. Remember, remember, I remember you.
Hey there. Thank you folks for waiting. I do appreciate it. Let's get this back on. Let's get back to it. There we go. Get the window nice and centered there. Yeah, that seems nice and centered. Cool, cool. And yeah. Let's go from there. So what we got? Let's turn this down a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it's using NCS radio, no copyright sounds radio, obviously, because I don't want to deal with copyright bullshit, and it works really well.
Give it a material. Down here, the little material tab, and then we're going to hit new.
Okay, let's go down there.
This is where we finished at the end of the last part, and we are ready for some materials. Before we continue, do a check over though, because I looked inside my donut and I saw this, which shouldn't be here,
I love that.
obviously, so make sure you don't have any hidden meshes. That should definitely not be there. You've only got your camera, your donut, your icing, and your light, okay? Okay, so materials. Let's do some materials. If we jumped into our render mode, that little button that I showed you on the first part, it takes you in.
Render mode, which is viewport shading.
Into rendered view mode, you can see we've got a lamp and it's lighting our donut in a very depressing cold gray. So let's give it a material.
Whoops, wrong button.
Down here, the little material tab, and then we're going to hit new. So just like before, the one thing we're
Material.
going to change is the color.
That is material, right? Material. There we go. New. Let's get some pink icing. Let's see here. There we go.
Let's make it a nice pink color. And that looks pretty good. The other value that you typically want to change for a lot of objects is the roughness value. So you can see the further I go all the way to the left hand side, the more it becomes a mirror. So all the way at 0 is basically a mirror. And then all the way to the right is your like most porous object, like a brick or something like that. Basically something that looks like it doesn't have a reflection, although everything does. The roughness is just merely dissipating that reflection everywhere, so it appears as though it doesn't. But anyways, so we're going to go with like a 0.3, something like that. That's pretty good. And then for the base of our donut, we're going to give it another material, and let's go with a nice orangey yellow, which we will.
Let's see. Let's see, what color would a donut be? Wait, to view it without any lighting? That's donut-like, right?
Change later on, so it won't matter anyway. But that's good. Great. Look at us. We've got a donut. By the way, we'll add some subsurface SSS later on to make this look a little bit more milky. But for now,
Subsurface
this is
scattering.
good. Now we want to put our donut onto a marble countertop. So first of all, we need that countertop as a separate object. So Shift A, and the one we're looking for is again under Mesh, and we're going to go with a plane. So a plane is just a square that's literally made up of 4 vertices. It's the simplest object, but the most versatile, that you use it all over the place. I think I'll make this look a little bit bigger, so let's just scale that out with S
and then click. Okay, so we want to make our donut rest onto the countertop. So if I selected my donut base and moved it up, well, there's a problem, right? We need to have both of these move together. So if you want to have one object basically attached to another object while still being its own separate object, you parent it. So the way we parent it is, first of all, you select the object that you want to follow the other object, so the child, and then you select the parent. So holding down Shift, I'm going to now click on the donut base, and then to parent, it's Control P. Okay, or again, if at any time you don't know what it is, just hit F3 for search, and then we can just type in parent. Now, by the way, with parent, you get a number of options here. The one you actually want is keep transform. If you just do object, it means if you've ever moved the object like off its base or whatever like that, it'll then like clear its position. So it's actually not the one you want most of the time. So it's keep transform. Now that I've done it, if you've done it in the correct order, you should be able to select the base and then move it, and the icing should go with it. If it doesn't, it means it's probably parented the other way. So again, make sure the object you want to follow, the other one, is selected first, and then the parent is selected last. Okay. So now I'm going to move that up along its z-axis, so G, and then just middle tap, and pull it up.
Okay, so let's...
Until it's resting.
Okay, let's say that works. Okay, I crashed it. Well then, thankfully I've been saving most of my work till now. So let's pick up where we left off. Wait, there's a recover. Oh, good. There we are. Sweet. So how do we set a parent? Let's go back and do that again, then, and we'll go from there.
Its own separate object. You parent it. So the way we parent it is, first of all, you select the object that you want to follow the other object, so the child.
Select the child
and then you
first.
select the parent. So holding down Shift, I'm going to now click on the donut base, and then to parent, it's Control P. Okay, or again, if at any time you don't know what it is, just hit F3 for search, and then we can just type in parent. Now, by the way, with parent, you get a number of options here. The one you actually want is keep transform. If you just do object, it means if you've ever moved the object like off its base or whatever like that, it'll then like clear its position. So it's actually not the one you want most of the time. So it's keep transform. Now that I've done it, if you've done it in the correct order, you should be able to select the base and then move it, and the icing should go with it. If it doesn't, it means it's probably parented the other way. So again, make sure the object you want to follow, the other one, is selected first, and then the parent is selected last. Okay. So now I'm going to move that up along its z-axis, so G, and then just middle tap and pull it up till it's resting on my counter. Haha, lovely. But don't worry about this looking like cartoonishly bad in terms of realism. I'm going to show you a button later on, which is
oh, no,
going to make
Control
this
Y.
phenomenally realistic. That's going to be in some later parts. But for now, this is fine, just whilst we work and piece the scene together.
There we go. Okay. I'm so confused because I hit G to move, G to grab, Z. Wireframe. Why? I didn't mean to go to wireframe. How do I do that? Z. Or first I hit G.
So for our countertop here, we need to give it a new material, and then underneath the base color, you can select not just a color by clicking the color, but the little dot next to it, that little yellow thing doesn't look like a button, it is. If you click that, you get this this pop-up, or pop-down in this point, which just gives you a number of options, and the one that we're looking for is image texture. So essentially it's replacing that import from a flat color to an image texture property. And it's now black, and it's asking you what image texture. So we need an image texture. Now we could go to just Google Images and just find any old marble texture, download that. The problem usually with textures on the web is that what most people call a texture is not ideal for 3D. Most textures are good for websites, but for 3D, we need extra information to tell the 3D software how the material property looks. Like, how does it reflect light? What do the bumps look like across the surface? And all that information is never available on these sites. So to find those textures, you have to go to a separate dedicated website. And the website that I recommend is Polygon. And the reason I recommend it is because it's mine. It's my website.
Oh.
That's why I recommend it. No, I started it 8 years ago because I was pretty dissatisfied with the quality of the texture websites that were available at the time. So I used my YouTube money to invest in a team and some high-tech equipment. We went out into the world and we scanned stuff to a very high quality standard. And over the years, we've grown it to include models and HDRIs as well. And obviously a lot of this stuff is paid, but we also have a free range, and obviously we're going to be using a free texture for this part. So this is the free texture, this is the one we're going to use, and...
Okay. Oh, that's cool as hell. Polygon. So we'll go to free here and grab the... Okay. So let's see. Vanilla quartzite texture gray. That's actually really fucking awesome. Oh, that is too cool. Okay, gotta sign up. Free to download. Okay. Well then, let's not do window capture there first. And let's... Let me just do that right quick. Okay, so let's see here. Log in. Okay, let's see here.
First of all, although it is free, you do need to sign up for an account. So you can just sign up with Google. That's usually the easiest one. It's a couple of onboarding questions. I would like to actually know how you, are you a professional? Are you a student? That's kind of interesting to me to know that. And then when you get to here, you're just going to say continue with free account. But power through that, and if you click the link in the description, again, this is the marble, and we just want to hit download.
Okay, so we just want to download it and not get the thing. Okay. $18K! Jesus Christ!
Don't you think we could be different if we could just take it slow, let it go, roll down all the windows, feel the wind rushing through, hear the music, take a clue. Don't you know all I'll ever really wanna be is a connected high, you and I, pinnacle, climactic fly. Show me yours, I'll show you mine. You don't have to pretend we're shy. Let's forget the 9 to 5. I just wanna feel alive. Take it slow, let it go, roll down all the windows.
Let's break it. I think I broke it. I got it. Let me out. Uh-oh, I think I broke the dang thing. I did break it. Let's try that again. There we go. That is a huge file. Good Lord. I mean, okay, I imagine it's going to be high resolution, but yeah, but it's 116 megabytes. I don't want to just store that on here, so shove that over here in my... I'll put in Blender stuff. Let's see. Folder. Backup for textures, etc. There we go. Let's see. Textures. There we go. Perfect. Okay, there we go. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll continue that from here.
You'll see in the bottom right hand corner it's downloading. It is a large size, but this is because it's 8K and we've got maps at like 16-bit depth to get all of that accurate information there. But once it is finished, it'll just appear in your downloads. Then you just unzip the zip file as you would normally, and then finally you should see some glorious high resolution images and ones with extra information like roughness. Very, very subtle, but will come through when we do the render. So back into Blender where we've got that image texture, we're going to click on open. Then navigate to where you unzipped it, and then
Okay, we'll go through that.
render. So back into Blender where we've got that image texture, we're going to click on open. Then navigate to where you unzipped it, and then just
Open, then we're going to go to Tutorial Textures. Select the Nolly. I want to click that view to match that up.
click on the one that ends with COL in the name, and then just hit open. And here it is. Okay, and it looks great up close. Only problem is, of course, look at that reflection. So bland, so fake. And as I mentioned before, fake is the enemy, and you need to squash it by just adding variance. So that's where our roughness map is going to come in. And while we could try to add it in here, this section on the right hand side, it's actually not where you do most of your material work, because this is kind of like a simplified, dumbed down version. It doesn't really, it gets a little bit complicated when you try and add too many things to it, because there's like too many menus and drop downs and all that kind of stuff. So instead, if you go to your shading tab at the top of the screen there, this will change the layout of the screen to something completely different we haven't seen before. And lots of windows, actually two men.
Cool.
I never actually need this one on the right hand side. So where you just mouse over where you've got the divider, and then just right click and then say join areas, and then you want to join it to the left to close it.
Wait, what did you do that?
Of windows, actually too many. I never actually need this one on the right hand side. So where you just mouse over where you've got the divider, and then just right click and then say join areas, and then you want to join it to the left to close it. And then I'll do the same here, because I've never needed those on the left hand side. So I've just got my view at the top here, and then this one here. And the reason, by the way, this looks different than what we had before is because this is the material preview, but you can change it back to what we had before by clicking that. So material preview, by the way, it's the same. It's a rendered mode, but it's using light.
Huh.
It's a different light setup. Basically, just an HDRI, which is like a fake kind of light and reflection map, just so that you can quickly preview materials. And really, you could use either or. They both kind of show the material, but yeah, let's use this one. Okay, but the bit that we're looking for is here. So this section here is your node setup, and it's actually an exact duplicate of what we did over here, because this on the right hand side is the simplified version. If you're just doing like a quick change, you might want to use this, but over here, this is what's actually happening to it underneath the hood, right? So you can see as I change this on the right hand side, that is also changing there. So they are linked. So the way nodes work is basically a left to right function. So we start over here with our image texture, it goes into our shader, which is the material for this plane, and then it comes out into a material output, and that's what is fed into the final shader. So essentially we could do anything, like for example, and this is one of the value of nodes, is between these two nodes we could add another node. Like for example, I could hit Shift A to add. Again, same hotkey, works everywhere. And then I could add in like a hue saturation value node. And then I could change the hue of my marble to look blue, right? Or something else. So that's the power of nodes, and you could just keep going, adding in adjustments and everything you want. So nodes, very, very flexible. They do look daunting because they get all these like, you know, squid looking lines going everywhere, but it's very, very convenient, very customizable. Okay, but we want to add something to our roughness so that we don't have a flat single value roughness, which is what that is currently. We want to use that map that we just downloaded. So one, you could hit Shift A and then add an image text this way, but actually we could also just drag out.
Okay, trying to see here though. As that highlighted. That highlighted. How does he have that?
Single value roughness, and what we had before is because this is the material preview, but you can change it back to what we had before by clicking that. So material preview, by the way, it's the same. It's a rendered mode, but it's using lights, a different light setup. Basically, just an HDRI, which is like a fake kind of light and reflection map, just so that you can quickly preview materials. And really, you could use either or. They both kind of show the material, but yeah, let's use this one. Okay, but the bit that we're looking for is here. So this section here is your node setup, and it's actually an exact duplicate of what we did over here, because this on the right hand side
we're
is
going
the
to use that as a
simplified version. If you're just doing
download.
like a quick change, you might want to use this, but over here, this is what's actually happening to it underneath the hood, right? So you can see as I change this on the right hand side, that is also changing it, so they are linked. So the way nodes work is basically a left to right function. So we start over here with our image texture, it goes into our shader, which is the material for this plane, and then it comes out into a material output, and that's what is fed into the final shader. So essentially we could do anything, like for example, and this is one of the value of nodes, is between these two nodes we could add another node. Like for example, I could hit Shift to add. Again, same hotkey, works everywhere. And then I could add in like a hue saturation value node, and then I could change the hue of my marble to look blue, right, or something else. So that's the power of nodes, and you could just keep going, adding in adjustments and everything you want. So nodes, very, very flexible. They do look daunting because they get all these like, squid-looking lines going everywhere, but it's very, very convenient, very customizable. Okay, but we want to add something to our roughness so that we don't have a flat single value roughness, which is what that is currently. We want to use that map that we just downloaded. So one, you could hit Shift A and then add an image text this way, but actually we could also just drag out from that input there and then just do a release, and it'll now say what do you want to add in this input. And we could type in image texture color and then hit enter. Then here, go to that same place that we unzipped it, and then we're looking for the one with roughness in the name. So roughness in the name, and then hit open. Okay, so this is better, right? You can kind of see we've got some detail there, but it doesn't look quite right. Something is not going right.
Which one's roughness? That's metalness. Roughness 8K.
It's because when you add an image texture, Blender doesn't really know what type of information it is yet, and by default it's looking at the color information, even though there isn't really color there. So instead we need to tell Blender this is a special map and we're just looking at the values, right? So essentially the color space here, we need to change it from sRGB, where it's a standard photo color, to instead non-color data, or just non-color, I guess they've changed it. But now you can see that looks correct, right? So look at all that. We've got scratches, we've got smudges. It's infinitely more realistic than what we had previously.
Oh.
So beyond that though, we could also add in little tiny bumps, okay? So bumps are in a place you would not expect. There's not a bump value here. It's actually under normal. So normal, you hear that word a lot in 3D, it just basically means the face, which direction is the face pointing, right? So if this is your face of the plane, you're pointing this way, that's the normal, right? but you can change the normal information to kind of tweak it to pretend like there is detail in that, okay? Essentially, we can plug in a specialized map called a normal map. Okay, so we're going to drag out from that normal map and then release and then image texture.
There we go.
That's what we want. I'm just going to click color, then drop, and then hit open. Go to that same folder, and then this is the one, the purple one.
Extract,
Right, so if this is your face of the plane, you're pointing this way, that's the normal, right? But you can change the normal information to kind of tweak it to pretend like there is detail in that, okay? Essentially, we can plug in a specialized map called a normal map. Okay, so we're going to drag out from that normal map and then release and then image texture. That's the last two things. That's the one we want. I'm just going to click color, then drop, and then hit open. Go to that same folder, and then this is the one, the purple one. It's the weirdest looking map. You always know you're looking at a CG texture map directory because it's the purple one and it's got NRM in the name for normal. And hit open. And just like before, it's not going to be correct because it thinks this is a color image texture, just like for photos. So we need to change it again to non-color data. And now,
Okay.
you would think that would fix it, but no, it looks even worse. What did we do? The problem is we need to convert this image texture into something this can read. So we need to put another node in between here. So the node is found under Shift A for add, then vector, normal map. So click and then just drop it here so it highlights between it and then just drop it. And it will now finally be correct. And if I go full screen with control space, I didn't mention that before, but yeah, control space, and then you can go full screen and you can see we've got very subtle little chips and divots across the texture along with those smudges, and it just looks way more believable. It means you don't have to worry about this part of your scene. It's just going to work and you're going to get all that detail for free, and just makes life
Wow.
but it is a lot of work. Like, what you've just made is a PBR shader, and yeah, it's a lot of work. All those little maps and everything, and having to know which setting is which. But it is a very common thing to learn, so that's why I wanted to include it in here. If I could plug my own website again, though, I will say we did hear you,
God.
because a lot of people say that. So we actually
I
made
just-
an add-on called the Polygon add-on, which I'll actually show you how to install later on, because that is actually important for 3D, because you use a lot of add-ons. If I could plug my own website again, though, so beyond,
Put
and
this
then hit
up.
open. Single, a huge preview, by the way. It's the one we're going to use, and render. So back into Blender, where we've got that image texture, we're going to click on open. Then navigate to where you unzipped it, and then just click on the one that's ends with
so-
COL in the name, and then just hit open. And here it is. Okay, and it looks great up close. Only problem is, of course, look at that reflection. So bland, so fake. And as I mentioned before, fake is the enemy, and you need to squash it by just adding variance. So that's where our roughness map is going to come in. And while we could try to add it in here, this section on the right hand side, it's actually not where you do most of your material work, because this is kind of like a simplified, dumbed down version. It doesn't really, it gets a little bit complicated when you try and add too many things to it, because there's like too many menus and drop downs and all that kind of stuff. So instead, if you go to your shading tab at the top of the screen there, this will change the layout of the screen to something completely different we haven't seen before.
Okay.
And lots of windows, actually too many. I never actually need this one on the right hand side, so where you
God,
just mouse over where you other node in using libraries, you're using add-ons like this, so you don't have to do it all manually all the time. But it is important to know add-on, but it is a lot of work. Like, what you've just made is a PBR shader, and yeah, it's a lot of work. All those little maps and everything, and having to know which setting is which. But it is a very common thing to learn, so that's why I wanted to include it in here. If I could plug my own website again, though, I will say we did hear you, because a lot of people say that. So we actually made an add-on called the Polygon add-on, which I'll actually show you how to install later on, because that is actually important for 3D, because you use a lot of add-ons. But to plug it very quickly, it actually does all of that without you having to leave Blender. So it'll download the texture for you. There we go. See, it's downloading. It's actually faster through the add-on. And then once you've got it, you just hit apply, and then it will do all of that node work for you in the background, and it'll just apply it to the mesh for you.
So you don't have to do all that all the time. And in fact, most people, I think, if you're working on big scenes, you're using libraries, you're using add-ons like this, so you don't have to do it all manually all the time. But it is important to know the process, so that's why I wanted to show it. But anyways, this was our material and we are happy with it. Well done. Let's go back to the layout tab. Now we're going to do one more thing. So you see our donut base here. Let's just isolate this donut for one moment here by hitting /, which I mentioned previously. Okay, when you're in /, this is isolate mode, which means it's literally turning off everything, including the lamp, which is why it's dark. But if you turn on material preview, then you get this. So this is okay. But if you look at real references of donuts, you'll see that it's typically whiter around the middle. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned before, the way it cooks, right? It's only like half submerged and then it's flipped. And it means that the bits that are closest to the surface are cooked less. So there's usually like a whiter part around the rim. And I mean, really, this is just an excuse to show you another part of Blender, which is texture paint. So at the top there, click the texture paint tab. And again, let's go into isolate mode with our donut there. Why are we not seeing? Okay, there we go. So what texture paint does is it lets you paint directly onto your mesh. But if we try...
Why did not isolate that? Okay, why didn't it isolate the donut by itself? Oh, because I gotta re-isolate it again?
By doing it, you can see nothing's happening, and it does give you a warning at the bottom, missing textures detected. So to paint, you're painting into an image, and the image doesn't exist yet, so we have to give it one. So go to the material tab, and then here where we got base color, we set it up as yellow, but we're actually just going to override it now. So click that little yellow dot again, and then say image texture. So now it's black, doesn't have an image. So, and instead of clicking open,
Let's see, image texture. Oh, color chart my donut, okay.
we're going to click new. So we're going to be creating a brand new image. Let's call this donut base. We could make this high res if we want, but don't. This is more than enough for a donut base, that's fine. And this will just save us time to color. This will just fill the it'll fill the image for us with a flat color. So we're just going to go for something pretty similar to what we had before.
Okay, so let's see here. It sucks.
Nice yellowy color, like that.
Oh, so what he's got for a tutorial.
It'll fill the image for us with a flat color. So we're just going to go for something.
8.6.591.
Pretty similar to what we had before, a nice yellowy color like that. And by the way, make sure you're all the way bright, otherwise your donut is going to be a little bit dark. So yeah, good. All right, and then hit OK. And once we've done that, you should, I mean, it should be over there on the left-hand side, but if it doesn't pop up, you can just select from the drop-down donut base, and there we go. So now we're in this state. Look what I can do. Ooh, fancy. So,
Aha!
I don't know why I said it like that. But we can paint directly
There we
onto
go.
our mesh. So to understand this, because it's kind of weird, you can also paint directly over here, and you might be thinking like, well, how does it know, like, how do I know which part over here is actually going to be painted over onto the donut there? You might not care, but it's actually good to understand how it works. So basically, this mesh here, it has to be unwrapped over onto this left-hand side here, because that's the only way to have a 2D texture, 2D flat image be applied to a mesh, is to unwrap it in some way. I mean, there's projection, I'm not getting into that, to unwrap it. And unwrapping is essentially like, there is a meme actually that explains it. But if you have like a chocolate, right, that is wrapped in some tinfoil, if you flatten it out, that is essentially UV unwrapping. There are little places in that wrapping where there had to be a cut, right, and then that cut was wrapped around the object. That's what UV unwrapping is. So the reason this works for us is because the cuts are actually already in place for default objects. So this torus is already perfectly UV unwrapped, so we don't have to do anything. I did want to mention it though, because it's important to understand UV unwrapping. Anyways, so we can actually paint directly on here, as I mentioned. White is a little bit too extreme though, so I'm going to click that. And choose a color. First of all, I'm going to select the eyedropper, and then not click over here, because that's got shading. Important to understand UV unwrapping. Anyways, so we could actually paint directly on here, as I mentioned. White is a little bit too extreme though, so I'm going to click that and choose a color. First of all, I'm going to select the eyedropper, and then not click over here, because that's got shading information. I'm going to click on the left-hand side, so we get the exact color, and then I'm going to make it closer to white. So not fully white, because that'll be too far, but closer to white. And I'm also going to change the strength of my brush. I'll make about halfway, and then now I can do paints across it, and this will enable you to get a much more natural feel, because you'll have, just like, in fact I might even go a little bit softer, and that way you can kind of just paint across it.
Oh, I see.
And this is very forgiving because we've got icing that's going to go over the top of it, but that's good. We don't want it to be too extreme. Let's just make it, I might go the other way. Make this a little bit more saturated. Anyways, that's basically all we need to do. We just want to just dab our toes into the field of texture painting. I would say texture painting, by the way, it's one of the weaker areas of Blender. It's actually due for an update at some point in the future, but it doesn't do, like, you can't paint into like the height information or the roughness information at the same time like you can with Substance Painter, but it's got basic functionality. Now, importantly, this is an image, but it's not saved into your blend file. It still needs to be manually saved. So see at the top left-hand corner there, it's got image with a star. If you see that star, it means you've got changes that haven't been saved. So we need to go image and then save and specify where are we going to put our image. Because if we don't do this, we're going to lose it. So it has to be saved somewhere. So I'm just going to save it, anywhere. It has to be saved somewhere because it will not be saved as part of the blend file. Very important to know that, otherwise you can lose texture paint work that you've done. But there we go. So now to bring back everything, remember if it looks like, where's the rest of my scene gone? See,
Okay. Now let's make it wider than that. Try that eyedropper tool again. How did he do that? How do you pick that right color?
So we need to go image and then now importantly, this is an image, but it's not saved too far, but that and choose a color. First of all, I'm going to select the eyedropper and then not click over here because that's got shading information. I'm going to click on the left hand side so we get the exact color, and then I'm going to make it closer to white.
Oh, he
so not
literally
white,
just drags it off. Drags it towards white there. Okay.
rather closer to white. And I'm also going to change the strength of my brush. I'll make about halfway, and then now I can do paints across it. And this will enable you to get a much more natural feel, because you'll have, just like, in fact, I might even go a little bit softer, and that way you can kind of just paint across it. And this is very forgiving because we've got icing that's going to go over the top of it, but that's good. We don't want it to be too extreme. Let's just make it, I might go the other way, make this a little bit more saturated. Anyways, that's basically all we need to do. We just want to just dab our toes into the field of texture painting. I would say texture painting, by the way, it's one of the weaker areas of Blender. It's actually due for an update at some point in the future, but it doesn't do, like, you can't paint into, like, the height information,
there we
or
go.
the roughness information at the
Yeah,
same
it
time.
does look like a donut.
It's got basic.
That's awesome.
Now, importantly, this is an image, but it's not saved into your blend file. It still needs to be manually saved. So see at the top left-hand corner there, it's got image with a star. If you see that star, it means you've got changes that haven't been saved. So we need to go image and then save and specify where are we going to put our image. Because if we don't do this, we're going to lose it. So it has to be saved somewhere. So I'm just going to save it, anywhere. It has to be saved somewhere, because it will not be saved as part of the blend file. Very important to know that, otherwise you can lose texture paint work that you've done. But there we go. So now, to bring back everything, remember, if it looks like, where's the rest of my scene gone? See top left-hand corner, local means it's isolated mode. So that means you just have to hit / again, and it brings back everything. And there we are. So that's the extent of this part of the tutorial. As I mentioned, some of you might be wondering, when are we going to make that lovely subsurface scattering? We're going to do.
Okay, so how do I get back to my original view, though?
It will not be saved as part of the blend file. Very important to know that, otherwise you
Oh, just click on texture paint.
can lose texture paint work that you've done.
Where do you click on that? Where do you click?
Save it. Anywhere. It has to be saved somewhere, because it will not be saved as part of the blend file. Very important to know that, otherwise as you can lose.
Oh, layout. Okay. Ew. And then back. Where's the rest of my image? There it is. Okay. Well then.
Lose texture paint work that you've done.
And there we are for
There we
that.
go. So now, to bring back everything, remember, if it looks like, where's the rest of my scene gone? See the top left-hand corner, local means it's isolated mode. So that means you just have to hit / again, and it brings
Cool.
back everything. And there we are. So that's the extent of this part of the tutorial. As I mentioned, some of you might be wondering, when are we going to make that lovely subsurface scattering? We're going to do that in the future after we do the sprinkles, because it's too hard to see at this point. So there we go, guys. Join me in the next part, and I'll see you there. The time is.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you folks for joining me here. We're going to go ahead and go over to the other channel. Let's see, because I think Games for Access is not streaming today, so I'll be doing my thing there. Let me go ahead and check real fast. Let me make sure there's no tournament or anything going on like that. Because I didn't think there was, but I want to double check. Okay, good. So, okay, so folks, I'm going to be hopping on to the other channel now. So let's go ahead and go from there. I'll go ahead and save this. Let's see. So we went kind of like from this. We went from this to this. Not bad. Well, let's see here. Uh-oh, did I just kill what I was doing? Yeah, I went from that to that. So, anywho, we're going to end this stream. Maybe we might stream a little bit more afterwards. I don't know, I'll be doing more Blender. I'm probably going to go on Games for Access and do some Helldivers, because that's fun. And yeah, or what we can do from this, I don't know. We'll see where we're at there. So I'll be back in a bit on the other channel. Just gonna get up, stretch, do the things, and we'll be back in a bit over on Games for Access. I'm gonna go ahead and post that here. Game for Access. So that'll be Twitch Game for Access, and we'll go there. Making sure that's doing the thing here. Let's see here, it wants to do that. Oh, just, yep, we'll go ahead and do that, making sure I have the right channel. So I'm going to drop that here, and yeah. So making sure I have the right channel up. My brain went out the window, so yep, I will see everyone there later. You all have a very good night.